Chapter 351, Do You Know Zhen Wrong? From the start, Aoyang Zhen had expected Mark to put forth a proposition regarding the weapon store. After knowing about this Supreme Realm expert on the guest side, he planned to ask for time instead of directly rejecting it. After all, no one in the right mind would offend such an expert. Little did he expect that Mark would turn out to be a prince of the Phoenix Empire, and also related to his prime minister, Lan Jiang. Had Mark would ask for his help regarding manpower and wealth, Aoyang Zhen would gladly provide it, although in an indirect manner, as the Eastern Sun doesn't have any relations with this southernmost empire of the Vermilion Bird continent. But Mark's revelation about his link with the Western Moon Kingdom, followed by the proposition of an alliance, caught him off guard for a moment. He couldn't help but fall into deep thinking, trying to analyze this weapon seller's real motive. For what reason has he revealed his real identity? Why did he become a mediator between Western Moon and the Eastern Sun? Are these two things related? There are questions in Aoyang Zhen's mind, but he wasn't close enough to Mark to confront him in a direct manner. So, he had to respond with the reply that was already on his mind from the start. Mark also agreed to give him 3 days of time before departing for his next destination. As Aoyang Zhen expressed his thanks, Mark then quickly switched to the next topic by handing a scroll to Lan Jiang. The legendary realm expert took a good look at the contents of the scroll and informed the king, which is procuring rare metals from the Eastern Sun while selling the spirit beast corpses directly to the palace. Since it isn't a big deal to give him a priority when Mark offered to purchase them at a market rate, Aoyang Zhen agreed to it without much thinking. Once those two things were done, Mark once again surprised them by stating that these two were the only things he had as an agenda regarding this visit. Only these two? Aoyang Zhen didn't understand what was going on in Mark's mind. After all, these two weren't serious things and can be accomplished even by talking through communication talisman. There's no need for a personal visit unless there's a deep meaning behind those propositions. As the king fell into thoughts one more time, Lan Jiang opened his mouth, speaking in a bit of favor toward Mark. Lu Zhen, you sure you don't want to talk about opening your store's branch here and selling firearms? Not anymore, replied Mark as he firmly shook his head in response. He further stated, as long as the royal palace is interested to buy the weapons from my store, it will be enough for now. As for opening a branch here, I'm confident that it will happen sooner or later, and it will be done at the formal request of King Aoyang Zhen. After all, the future belongs to firearms. Lan Jiang's question, followed by Mark's reply, forcefully brought Aoyang Zhen back to reality, and he saw a trace of arrogance in Mark's tone. He wondered where Mark's confidence is coming from. Is it because of that mysterious expert, Wu Weibao? If it is, then, in Aoyang Zhen's eyes, Mark was too delusional to think a power of a mere individual can change the ways of society. People, whether they are commoners or rulers, don't like change and will try to eliminate the one who is trying to bring it. Hence, this 12-year-old thinks that Mark's grand ambition will go unfulfilled. But then again, saying this out loud will only bring nothing but a useless argument between them. Who knows, the argument might even escalate to something worse, which he doesn't want, for it was not only bad for the Eastern Sun, but also for the mystery about his adopted sister's past might go unsolved. Hence, Aoyang Zhen kept his mouth shut and simply nodded as if he was agreeing with Mark, although not commenting on whether he would permit the sale of firearms to the public. However, at the same time, he also knows that there is a possibility of merchants importing firearms from the Phoenix Empire and selling them to the commoners. And seeing confidence in Mark, Aoyang Zhen realized that perhaps he shouldn't take this lightly. This resulted in a thought appearing in his head about implementing a law on owning firearms. He decided to discuss with Lan Jiang and announce it later on. After a while, Mark returned to his room and Aoyang Zhen returned to the throne hall. Strangely, for the same reason, neither of them brought up the topic of the princess and ended the meeting. Coincidentally, it appeared that both of them don't want Lan Jiang to hear of this matter, and they thought of talking about it when the time is right. And that right time arrived at midnight, when Lan Jing was away from the palace. Before going to bed, Mark was spending his time drawing designs of some of his creations from his past life. While he was in the middle of thinking about the material composition for a cruise missile, the door was knocked on twice. He stopped his work for a moment and asked who it is, wondering whether it is Song Yue or Lan Ju. However, there was no response from the other side and the knocks continued. Mark furrowed his brows after his question went unanswered once again. Putting away his designs back into his storage ring, Mark opened the skill list with his finger almost touching the gravity dome. He knew that the enemy wouldn't knock on the door like this, but still, he couldn't help but become cautious as he wasn't inside his home where he is a god. He slowly opened the door and found a familiar-looking kid, wearing a robe and covering his head with a hood. Uyin. Mark was about to call him by his name in surprise, but the kid put a finger on his own mouth and slowly slipped inside the room, gesturing him to close the door. As Mark did it while dropping down his guard, Auyang Zhen removed his hood and placed a scroll on the floor before pouring his ether energy into it. The scroll lit up and unleashed a noise-canceling barrier. Once the barrier was finished, Auyang Zhen let out a sigh of relief and spoke, "Sorry about that, Mr. Lu. I just need to be careful." Okay, so, what is it that you want to talk about that you had to visit my room at this hour and this secretly?" Mark asked him. He was indeed curious about what this kid had to say. Yang Zhen then took a deep breath and said, "It is about my sister Zan Rong. Do you know her?" Mark took a step back in surprise as soon as he heard that. At first, he wanted to feign ignorance, but then the king went on to reveal that during the auction, he heard how Mark had addressed Zan Rong as Mari, when no one should have known that her real name is Marina Zan. After thinking about the pros and cons while staring at the kid for a few seconds, Mark came to a decision and spoke, "Very well, I'll tell you what I know about her and her family. But before that, I need to know how she ended up in this palace." Chapter 352, The Eye of Talim. Roughly 15 minutes later. The atmosphere in the room fell quiet as Mark and Auyang Zhen were digesting the information each of them received from one another. As a person who wants to help his sister, Auyang Zhen was honest. He didn't leave a single important detail like how her grandfather was investigating an unexplored ancient ruin site and discovered mountains of gold, jewels, and top-quality equipment that includes a divine-grade item. However, it wasn't easy for him to get those things out of the place, as the main underground chamber was guarded by a white dragon. The former king fought with the dragon and emerged victorious while receiving fatal injuries in return. As a result, he lost his cultivation, and a great supreme being like Auyang Ru ended up being immortal. But this isn't the end of the story. Before the white dragon died, it handed Zan Rong, who appeared to be sealed in crystal, and informed Auyang Ru that her real name is Marina Zan. After revealing that she is from a different world and her cultivation is vastly restricted, the white dragon requested Auyang Ru to protect her in exchange for a divine-grade item and became a corpse. And by the time Zan Rong was unsealed from the crystal and opened her eyes, she had no recollection of her identity, and the king gave her a new name and title. In the following year, the king dies in an assassination plot, and Auyang Zhen would become the new king of Eastern Sun. As for Mark's side of the story, he wasn't that honest, for his past life is linked with hers. Hence, he didn't speak about his actual connection with Zan Rong, but instead told them that he met her at a place called Vienna during one of his travels with his master. After that, he saw her once again in another world where a race called the Dark Elves looked slightly different from the traditional elves of this current world. However, he didn't meet her as his master urged him to leave that place due to certain circumstances. Later on, he met her for the third time during the auction. Mark claimed that this is why he was so surprised to meet her back then. There's nothing more to the story that he can add to. There were two reasons behind this false story, narrated by Mark. One, obviously he doesn't want to reveal that he transmigrated, for the manipulative people of this world would try to term him as some kind of demon instead. As for the second, his abnormal growth of strength and the unknown modern weapon technology will give rise to a lot of suspicions, as his fame attracts the attention of Supreme Realm experts. It wasn't that he was afraid of being targeted. It is just that Mark is a businessman whose income depends on the public. Hence, he had to give a bit of information about his background so that the commoners think of him as their own, not some otherworlder or a guy who sold his soul to the devil. It was also one of the reasons why he revealed his birth secret too, and plans to make it public, later on. With this now, his story will go like a prince who had been wronged since birth. Then, lived his life as a normal fellow until he encounters a mysterious expert by coincidence, changing his life upon accepting him as his master and selling firearms on his behalf. As for the identity of his master, no one would dare to inquire about a guy who can travel between the worlds, i.e., at least a demigod, and create such advanced weapons. Anyways, back to the present, after sorting out his thoughts, Mark asked whether they have any ideas about how to forcefully jog one's memory, before adding that his master is currently out of reach. Yang Zhen looked at him like he wanted to scold him. Are you an idiot? If I know how to retrieve her memory, why would I bother talking about this with you? Can't I do it myself? Thankfully, Lan Jiang responded quickly by telling them about a piece of treasure. Lu Zhen, it is called the Eye of Talim, a dwarven artifact that can help you do that. It is said that the artifact is usually used to only store the memories of any number of people, so that their experiences and knowledge of techniques can be passed down to new generations. However, you can also use it to recollect a forgotten memory as long as it was there in your brain. As Mark became mildly curious about this artifact, Yang Zhen asked him where he can find it. Without a bit of hesitation, Lan Jiang then said, it was currently in the possession of the Wuji sect. However, it is impossible to steal it from them as it was too precious. Wuji sect, never heard of it. Is it strong? Perhaps Mark grew too arrogant after the power boost earlier, that he no longer cared about these powerful organizations, no matter what kind of prestige they have. He wasn't even worried about the overall strength of the sect, and just casually asked his granduncle to speak about the trump card of the Wuji sect. Lan Jiang answered, according to what we know, the Wuji sect's leader is a supreme being, Peak 9 Circle, and has 5 Supreme Realm experts and more than a dozen Legendary Realm experts as backing. Mark's expression slightly changed for a moment, but the calmness returned quickly to his face. Lan Jiang continued to speak about the power of the Wuji sect, which is based in the Leon Empire. Excluding countless treasures, powerful guardian beasts, and 2 divine-grade treasures, the sect has a defensive formation, which will restrict the strength of invaders. Even with his support, you cannot bend the will of Wuji sect elders. Lan Jiang indirectly warned Mark to not take foolish steps, for he knows what kind of person this grandnephew of his is. But will Mark listen to him? Naturally he wouldn't. In the end, he promised them that once he acquires the artifact, he will send a message and ask them to bring the girl to the imperial city of Phoenix. Yang Zhen and Lan Jiang could only look at each other and shook their heads as Mark left the room. Chapter 353, The Coachman's Fortuitous Encounter. 3 days later, Mark and his companions left Helios City and journeyed to the western neighbor, the Kun Empire. As the empire's capital was far away from the shore, Mark chose the land route, traveling by the traditional carriages instead of LMV. Those carriages and their respective coachmen were provided by the palace. Obviously, they weren't your typical horse carriages either. Both of the carriages were pulled by bighorns, which are 4 circle spirit beasts of the dark attribute. These dark horses with 2 horns could run faster than the maximum speed attained by LMVs. Adding on top of that, the presence of the royal family's crest helped Mark to cross the border without facing any questions from the guards posted at checkpoints or worrying about the directions. As a result, Mark not only got qualitative time alone with his fiancée and saved the effort of driving, but he was also able to cross the border before sunset. Of course, these spirit beasts can also travel through the darkness, but Mark was against the idea, not because he thought it was unsafe or anything. It is just that he doesn't want to sit in a carriage all day long. Hence, he ordered the coachman to stop nearby a pond and went on setting up the tent to take a rest for the night. As a woman, Song Yue had a tent on her own and slept peacefully, while the manticore stood outside as a guard and kept an eye on the surroundings. Lan Ju had gone on a stroll in his beast form as he felt like it, and no one objected to his decision. And Mark ended up sharing the tent with his future father-in-law. As for the poor two coachmen, they neither have the luxury to sleep in tents, nor do they have the courage to rest inside the carriages. As a result, they could only sleep beside one of the campfires. But it doesn't mean that they were being mistreated or anything. Generally, all adventurers won't set up tents and campfires as they would attract unnecessary trouble. So, they were comfortable with sleeping outside, on the ground. If there is anything that is troubling them, it is actually the presence of the manticore. These coachmen were just 3 Circle Realm spirit warriors, while the manticore is a legendary realm beast king. It was no surprise that they were afraid of its presence. Hence, they slept as far away as possible from the beast. Eventually, everyone fell asleep. By around 3 a.m. in the morning, the flames were gone from the campfire, and the cold air struck the two coachmen, making them shiver involuntarily. While one of them doesn't want to disturb his sleep because of the mere chilly atmosphere, the other one named Dai Q woke up and looked around. Because the dark clouds covered the moon, there was absolutely no light around him and he couldn't see anything. Perhaps the manticore was closing its eyes. He couldn't see the beast either. Too dark, maybe I should relight the campfire. The chunks of dry wood are also nearby, although it would be tough to locate them in this darkness. Should I just go back to sleep then? As the guy was wondering what to do, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was a light in the sky. No, it wasn't just simple light. It was a portal that was emitting light. What is going on? Dai Q panicked and instantly tried to reach out to his left where his other colleague was sleeping. It was just then he saw 2 figures exit from the portal and started falling from the sky with their back facing the ground. Dai Q didn't know what came over him. Instead of waking up his partner or caring about the manticore, which also opened its eyes and was curiously looking at the portal, he just rose to his feet and foolishly rushed in the direction these strangers were about to fall. Thankfully for him, the portal didn't disappear and continued to emit light. Hence, he didn't have a problem reaching the spot only to find 2 teenagers being enveloped by light as they were floating just 1 foot above the ground. They didn't crash and died. Phew, it looked like they were all right. Dai Q let out a sigh of relief and approached them. The 2 unconscious teenagers suddenly fell to the ground, and a floating ball of light appeared in his sight. Meanwhile, the portal disappeared and the darkness loomed over the region once again. But for Dai Q, his immediate surroundings up to 5 meters are still visible, so he clearly saw the appearances of the teenagers. One is a boy and another is a girl. The boy looked ordinary and had the attire of a martial artist, while the girl was pretty and wore a luxurious dress. Neither of them looked injured, but seeing the boy's clothes torn apart around his right shoulder and waist, Dai Q wondered whether they have gone through the battle, and if someone healed them before sending them through the portal. What to do with them? Dai Q stroked his chin, not knowing whether to take them with him or leave them. After all, he wasn't with his adventuring buddies. He was on an official mission given by the king, and his clients were the royal guests of the kingdom. He doesn't have the guts to even speak with them. Not to mention that manticore that is constantly keeping him on his edge just with its presence. Earlier, Dai Q only had the thought of saving the misfortunate, but now that he remembered his reality, Dai Q became clueless. After much deliberation on the matter, he made his decision. Dai Q sat on the ground and spoke to himself. Okay, I will guard these 2 until sunrise and then leave. At this time, let's try to wake them up. Dai Q stretched his hand toward the boy. Suddenly, the ignored ball of light, which was on standby until now, suddenly flew forward and floated before his hand and moved left in hand. Dai Q was taken aback. You don't want me to wake him up? He commented just in surprise, but didn't expect the ball of light would respond to his words. by spinning up and down as if it was nodding its head. "You can understand my words?" asked Daiqiu while pinching his arm, not being able to believe the scene. In response, as the ball of light spun up and down, Daiqiu asked with curiosity, "What are you?" The ball of light then released a bit of light attribute energy and shockingly wrote a reply in the air. It introduced itself as a light elemental spirit and has no name or master, but was still a servant of the Wen sect. Daiqiu scratched his hair in confusion. He never heard of it and asked more questions. As time passed, Daiqiu and the ball of light continued to converse with each other. Perhaps it was because it wasn't a human and the two teenagers were unconscious. Daiqiu shared the stories of his small-time adventures with it while spending the time. Eventually, the darkness in the surroundings started fading away, and Daiqiu saw that it was time for dawn. Since he couldn't stay, he apologized to the ball of light and told it that he needs to go. But, to his surprise, the ball of light shot toward his forehead and he too lost consciousness. "An elemental light spirit. Interesting indeed," a voice came from above. A five-tailed scarlet leopard was staring at the figures from the sky. Chapter 354. The Representatives of Kunlun Sect. Some time later, after having a night of good sleep, Mark slowly wakes up in the morning and lazily stretches his body. "Yu Xia, today is day 17 and less than 2 weeks away from the completion of the system upgrade. I guess there is enough time. Anyway, let's go and resume our journey. We should reach the palace by evening. Clang, clang, clang." The sounds of metals clashing with each other disturbed his thoughts and made him focus on the outside. Wondering what's going on, he raises the door only to witness two strangers having a sword fight, not just far away from his tent. His other companions were staring at the teenage couple. Mark stepped outside, but it appeared that no one but Song Yue paid attention to him, as everyone's eyes were on the strangers who were moving at a crazy speed. Meanwhile, Song Yue walked toward him and greeted him good morning, asking about how his sleep went. Mark asked about the strangers in reply. "Oh, those kids were brought by Guardian Lan, Mr. Wu," replied Song Yue. After taking a pause, she further added, "It appeared that Coachman Dai had a fortuitous encounter. Yesterday he was at 3 Circle, and today he suddenly became a 5 Circle warrior. Those two kids were demanding him to return with them and serve their sect." If it was previous Mark, he would have gotten quite interested in the treasure that this adventurer turned coachman acquired. But at his present stage, only divine-grade artifacts might interest him. Mark didn't think too much about it and placed his focus on the teenagers before speaking out loud, "Clap, clap, all right. That's enough playing around. Now, everyone, gather here." Upon hearing Mark's voice, the two teenagers who just started their sparring suddenly halted their movements and looked in the direction of the sound. Meanwhile, the others quickly left their positions and went toward Mark. Seeing the others, the teenagers also followed them. Mark then inquired about their identities, wanting to listen to their story from their mouths. While the girl appeared to be slightly nervous, the boy took responsibility to answer the questions. From the others, he heard of Mark and he had also seen the royal crest on the bicorn carriages. Hence, he made sure to be as polite as possible. Cupping his fists, he greeted Mark before retelling his story. "Lord Lu, we are the members of Lian Empire's Kunlun sect. My name is Dong Fang and she is Zai Ling, the granddaughter of our patriarch." Mark took a glance at the girl, who immediately dropped her head in shyness. As he looked back at the boy, he continued the story. They were on their way to Kun Empire's Xianshu sect for the Dragon Warrior Tournament, which is conducted every decade where every talented individual can participate as long as they fulfill 3 conditions. 1. The individual should belong to a sect, which should be located in the Vermilion Bird continent. 2. The individual should at least be in the cultivation realm of 4 Circle, but she cannot have a cultivation realm greater than 6 Circle. And 3. The individual's age should be below 30 years old. Because the Kunlun sect is quite well known and is one of the top 10 sects of the continent, the sect received 4 seated spots where the selected individuals wouldn't need to participate in qualifying rounds. Dongfang claimed that while he and Zai Ling along with 3 more companions were on their way to the destination, they were ambushed by their bitter rivals, the members of Wuji sect. Mark was slightly taken aback upon hearing a familiar name. He planned to go there anyways to retrieve the artifact. Now, his interest in these teenagers increased a little bit. Meanwhile, Dongfang continued to speak with a look of frustration on his face. That traitorous bitch AI Qing colluded with the enemies to take down our elder and another sect member. If not for our elder's sacrifice, we would have died too. Dongfang. Zai Ling couldn't help but raise her head and pat his shoulder in pity as the boy grit his teeth in anger. Mark didn't want to know how close they are to this person AI Qing or the late elder. He was just interested in knowing whether these two could be helpful to him in some way or whether it is just a waste of time to talk with them. Hence he asked the boy, "So what do you plan on doing? Will you return to the sect?" Dongfang shook his head and answered with a determined expression. "There's no way we would return empty-handed and make a joke out of the sacrifice of our companions. We must return victorious." Mark fell into thoughts for a while. Upon thinking about how to use them, he turned to the shy girl. "Ms. Zai, I have a question for you." "Yes," she yelped in surprise and looked at Mark directly before looking down at the ground. "Please speak." As Dongfang and others curiously looked at Mark, wondering what he wanted to ask, the latter put forth a proposal, using the opportunity. "I'll help the both of you to safely travel to your destination, and I will also help you take your revenge to return to your sect with the heads of your enemies. In return, I want you to arrange a meeting with your patriarch and the other elders that have the power to make or break the laws of your sect. Will you be able to do that?" Why? The girl's eyes widened, and she abruptly raised her head to look at Mark for a moment before going back to her shy mode. Not only her, but even the others were also thinking that this proposal is quite strange and wondered what was going on in this handsome fellow's mind. After all, the sects won't use firearms as it would go against their principles. Hence, if Mark has only a weapon-selling deal in his mind, then generously helping these teenagers in such a way is a bad idea. However, is that everything? Perhaps Mark has a different motive for helping them. Everyone wondered but didn't voice it out. Chapter 355, The Unfortunate Crown Prince. "So, do you agree to this proposition?" Mark steadily gazed at the girl who couldn't understand the reason. In response, she commented while staring at the ground, "You would unnecessarily offend the Wuji sect if you help us. Is there a need for the senior to go to such lengths just for a meeting?" She was kind enough to think of the welfare of others, but not everyone would reply in kindness. Mark wiped off his smile and sternly told her that it is a matter of adults and she should only answer with a yes or a no. Dongfang tried to support her, but Mark also acted coldly toward him, stating that it isn't his place to answer unless he can take decisions on her behalf. As Dongfang shut up his mouth, Zai Ling bit her lip and slowly nodded. "Yes, I promise. Please seek justice for my seniors." As soon as she gave her promise, Mark's smile returned to his face once again as if he was a cheerful person in the first place. He said, "All right then, it is settled." Dongfang looked at Mark like he was wondering, is this fellow a good guy or a bad guy? Roughly a couple of hours later, the bighorns started running in the wilderness at their top speed. Dongfang and Zai Ling joined the carriage. Mark and Song Yue were sitting in, although in reluctance with the weapons seller appeared to have a lot of questions to ask them. Mark asked them about the powerful sects in the Lian Empire, the imperial palace's strength and the ideologies of their emperor, the wealthiest merchants and individuals, etc. Within a couple of hours, Mark got a rough understanding of everything that he needed to know in order to decide whether it is okay to involve the Lian Empire's forces in his grand plan or not. Imperial City, Jingyu City, Kun Empire. On the streets of the city, a middle-aged fellow in luxurious robes was walking with a look of depression on his face. He was sighing over and over again. It is none other than Qin Yu, who doesn't have a great daily routine, if one should say. He gets up early in the morning, goes to the training ground to hone his skills and strength, returns to the palace, gets bashed by the ministers left and right for his foolish opinions on the affairs of the empire, goes out once again, this time to his secret residence where he meets an adventurer's wife with whom he had an extramarital affair with, returns to home and quarrel with his main wife, title, Crown Princess, over one issue or another, and finally going to sleep with one of his 5 other wives, title, secondary consorts. Unless something special happens, usually this is how the life of Qin Yu went on for years. Qin Yu expected to change his life after introducing those 500 battle tanks he acquired from the Western Moon Kingdom as a part of his share, but he was only mocked by the officials in the end. He had forgotten that no one in the Kun Empire possessed the knowledge of firearms yet, much less operating them, and battle tanks were more advanced than mere firearms. How could the soldiers operate them just based on the instructions provided on the paper? It isn't the same as mastering the techniques recorded in skill books. Because of Qin Yu's high ambitions, dozens of destructive battle tanks that went out of control caused a lot of property damage to the training grounds and injuries among common soldiers, but thankfully no casualties. Qin Yu's plan failed terribly, with the emperor ordering him to submit all of them to the palace. As a result, his 500 battle tanks were taken away by the palace without giving him any contribution. And the worst has yet to come. After the emperor took away the battle tanks, he assigned his favorite, the public's favorite, the 4th prince, to look after those tanks. Soon, the 4th prince, Qin Zhai, was going to be formally appointed as the general of the battle tanks division, once the soldiers under him manages to control them properly. What else can Qin Yu do if his own father is against him? With no supporters to stand by his side and fight, the crown prince can only give up on his ambition while finding solace in his extramarital affair. It was around the time of dusk when he would leave to meet his secret lover. However, Qin Yu couldn't meet her as the woman's husband is at home, and he was as depressed as he can be at the moment. After walking for a while, the crown prince decided to relieve his stress by visiting a beautiful courtesan. Damn it, I shouldn't have sent them away. The crown prince blamed himself for sending away his servant along with his horse carriage for wanting to spend time alone on the streets earlier. Now, he would need a carriage to get to the brothel. As he was hopping for a private carriage to enter the street he was standing on, 2 carriages pulled bicorns past by him instead. Qin Yu's eyes fell on the crest of the banner placed on the carriages, and his eyes lit up. A sun with a sword. Is it an envoy from the Eastern Sun making a trip? Let's see what the imperial palace is up to. As the bicorns were just slowly walking in the street, with a quick dash, Qin Yu managed to outpace them with ease and then stood in their path. The front carriage stopped, followed by the behind one. Seeing his luxurious clothes, the coachman thought that he might be a noble and it might not be good to unnecessarily offend him. Hence, he decided to politely deal with him. "Greetings, mister. We represent the Eastern Sun's royal family. Please make the way," said the coachman. Qin Yu nodded. "I know that. Inform him that the crown prince of this empire wishes to meet him." "Crown prince?" The coachman was taken aback. Just as he was about to step down and tell the people sitting in the back, i.e. Lan Ju, Song Yun, and the Manticore, the Zheng already passed the info to Mark through their telepathic connection. By the time the coachman stepped down, the door of the second bicorn carriage was already open and Mark stepped out. Chapter 356. Plan to create a puppet emperor. Silence filled the carriage traveling at the front as Qin Yu became completely honest with Mark, who left Song Yue and joined the other one. The crown prince expected to get snubbed by Mark after revealing his current situation, but instead, he saw the weapon seller break into a peal of laughter and commented, "It is perfect, Prince Yu. It made my job a lot easier." Qin Yu misunderstood that he was being mocked by him too and felt a bit angry. However, in the next moment, his eyes widened as Mark continued to say, "How about I solve your problems? There's a simple solution." "Eh, what do you mean?" Qin Yu wondered whether Mark was suggesting the assassination of the fourth prince, and he planned to reject the idea as he was against such a thing. Not to mention the repercussions in case the plan will fail. Thankfully, he didn't voice it out, and his patience rewarded him quite well. The misunderstandings cleared when the weapon seller went on to explain the details of his proposition. 500 battle tanks are nothing. I can provide you with manpower, better weapons, and required ammunition. You just need to establish a guild. The robots are puppets that won't betray their owners like the people. You can trust them and create a private force that will be loyal to only you and no one else. They will be strong enough to contend against any army with only a few weeks of training. Using your influence, bring tasks to your guild and then complete them using your army. The more your fame grows, the more elite adventurers will be willing to join your guild. Eventually, it leads to support from the ministers and nobles. Now, the only question that is remaining is, are you willing to put your future in the hands of a stranger like me? Mark asked while looking straight into the eyes of Qin Yu. The crown prince of the Kun Empire was obviously tempted by the offer laid out by Mark. It felt like a devil's whisper, and he who was on his wits' end couldn't resist the offer, fearing that the opportunity will disappear once again. Mark expected Qin Yu to ask for time, but the latter only thought for 5 seconds and gave a nod. I'm willing, Owner Lu. As long as you are on my side, I'm confident that I will gain everything that I have lost. Mark let out a smile, inwardly rejoicing that he easily acquired a puppet that he needed, and then said, as a gift for the beginning of our friendship, more like the beginning of Qin Yu's servitude, today I will do you a favor. If you are lucky, perhaps, you might have a small victory against your brother. Imperial Palace of Jingyu. The emperor of the Kun Empire was in the middle of having tea with an old man. The latter was a grand elder of the Xianchu sect, and he visited the palace to formally invite the emperor to the Dragon Warrior tournament. The opening ceremony and the finals are both equally important days for the tournament. Hence, the sect elders wanted the emperor to grace them with his presence. Other than that, there was one more thing that the old man wanted to discuss with Emperor Qin Mo. It is about the fourth prince, Qin Zhai's marriage. Unlike the families living in cities, sects weren't interested in things like marriage and having kids, etc. The members of the sects were usually more interested in finding a cultivation partner. The top sects have these qualitative dual cultivation techniques that will help a couple to speed up their cultivation progress if they practice it together. There will also be several other benefits, and it cannot be practiced just with anyone. As someone said to be born with enormous potential, it is impossible for Prince Qin Zhai to stay single with everyone having eyes on him for different reasons. Your Majesty, our Zai Mei will legally turn adult, 16 years. In a couple of months, and Patriarch Zai wanted his granddaughter to be wed to Prince Zhai and both of them to become cultivation partners. Emperor Qin was slightly surprised, not because of a marriage proposal but more because of the fact that the girl is just 15 right now. She is just a teenager, and his son is at least 12 years older. By the time she enters her mid-20s, an ideal age for marriage, in his opinion, Qin Zhai would be already in his late 30s. However, he cannot make fun of the guest's mindset when it was his ancestors who wrote that rule in the empire's constitution in the first place. Moreover, he had to be careful when dealing with a supreme realm expert. Hence, Emperor Qin tried a different method to reject the proposal. He grabbed his chin as if he was contemplating and said, Zai Mei, huh? Can't believe the little girl already reached that age. I guess time flew very quickly. As far as Zai Mei is concerned, I have no problems with her. Just like my son, she is also considered the heavenly child with the potential to become a demigod. They are a good match. However, when I talked with my son about his marriage, he informed me that he is fond of Princess Shen Ling of the Western Moon Kingdom. Soon, we are already planning to send a marriage proposal to King Shen. It would be extremely unfair for a girl like Zai Mei to end up as a secondary consort. Emperor Qin thought that this guest would back away after hearing this explanation, but little did he expect that he would be the one to get surprised instead. But Your Majesty, Princess Shen Ling was already engaged to that weapon seller. How could Western Moon even accept your proposal? The Supreme Realm expert responded with a question. He looked at the Emperor as if the latter had gone crazy for going to do such a stupid thing. A weapon seller who? Emperor Qin looked clueless on the matter. The Supreme Realm expert felt the urge to slap his forehead, but forcefully calmed himself down with a deep breath and explained. Those chunks of metallic puppets you snatched from the Crown Prince and gave to Prince Zhai were actually sold by the weapon seller named Lu Zhen. He is a commoner from Phoenix Empire with no special background, but surprisingly has a supreme being on his side and sells powerful weapons known as firearms. If I should say, those things he introduced to the world should be called an abomination, as they defy all the hard work our ancestors had done over the centuries to create fighting techniques. King Shen Niu might have not made an official announcement, but it is true that he betrothed his daughter to Lu Zhen. The Supreme Realm expert had a serious look on his face as he warned the Emperor to not go with the proposal. Meanwhile, Emperor Qin quietly stared at the old man with a goatee as if he wanted to say, "Aren't you guys mountain dwellers who were cut off from the rest of the world? How in the hell is it that you guys know so much about the matters of the South when he, the Emperor of Kun, was left in dark?" With the matter of Shen Ling being resolved, the Supreme Realm expert then, once again, urged the Emperor to consider the Xianchu sect's proposal. The Emperor now was thinking about how to respond. It was at that moment. A soldier entered the room and informed him that the Crown Prince is requesting an audience. Chapter 357, I'm here to do business. Using his authority as the Crown Prince, Qin Yu took Mark and the others into the Imperial Palace without the need for any invitation or permission letter, followed by allotting them their guest rooms before hurriedly leaving to meet his father. Perhaps his luck also turned around after meeting Mark. His father, who never easily sees him when he was in a meeting with someone else, suddenly allowed him to walk in. With great enthusiasm, Qin Yu walks inside and spots a familiar-looking old man. He stops in his tracks involuntarily and apologized for the intrusion. "I didn't know that you were in a meeting with Venerable Yang. I'll come at a later time." The reason why the Emperor let his good-for-nothing son interrupt this meeting is that he wanted some time to think of a way to reject the marriage proposal from the Xianchu sect now that the Western Moon Kingdom is out of the picture. Why would he now send him away? The Emperor sternly ordered him to speak about what he was for. Qin Yu took a glance at the Supreme Realm expert and then said, "An acquaintance of mine wishes to meet you. He is a weapon seller from the imperial city of Phoenix Empire who came to the north because of an official business with the Eastern Sun's royal family. Since he was already here, I took the opportunity to invite him." Phoenix Empire. The Emperor and the Supreme Realm expert took a glance at each other. They were just talking about a certain individual from the same place and had the same profession too. Since the person is already a guest at their palace, the Emperor thought that he can spare a couple of minutes to meet this fellow. He gave a nod to his son. "All right, I will see him later." On the other hand, the Xianchu sect's Grand Elder had a different thought. He felt like it was too much of a coincidence that the Crown Prince's acquaintance is a weapon seller, who also happened to have official business at the Eastern Sun. But at the same time, there is no reason for him to meet a weapon seller even if it turns out to be Lu Zhen. After all, their worlds are different. Hence, he kept silent as the Crown Prince walked away. It was then a sudden thought popped up in his head, and once Qin Yu left the room, the Supreme Realm expert made a suggestion. "Your Majesty, why don't you send the Crown Prince to our sect to supervise the competition? I'll talk to our patriarch to arrange it. This might give him a chance to prove his usefulness to the palace. If he can pull it off successfully, you can probably try sending him as an envoy to other empires like the other princes." Emperor Qin was slightly surprised by this old man's comment, but he was secretly happy that the topic might be diverted because of this. Hence, without any hesitation, he started talking about his woes because of his eldest son's activities. The Supreme Realm expert didn't know whether to laugh at the Emperor's misfortune or pity. The Crown Prince, as Qin Mo continued to undermine his son behind his back. But then again, it wasn't his nose to poke into the matters of the imperial family. So, Yang Bingwen kept quiet and let the old emperor speak as long as he wants. Meanwhile, Qin Yu appeared to be quite elated with his request becoming successful. He went to the guest quarters and informed Mark about the situation. However, Mark didn't feel that impressed by the emperor's decision, as Qin Yu was. He left his room and entered the neighboring next room, where Lan Ju was taking a rest. Mark woke up the Zheng and told him to follow him to meet the emperor. Brother Lu, my father is in the meeting. It is not appropriate to meet him right now without his permission. The Crown Prince was surprised that his guest would lack so much patience that he would get ready to barge into the private chamber and interrupt Emperor's meeting with a Supreme Realm expert. Mark then halted his footsteps and looked at the Crown Prince, letting out a smile. Prince Qin, this is why you are getting stepped on every single day. You need to learn to fight back to protect your interests. He then looked at the Zheng and gestured to him something. Lan Ju nodded in understanding. Seeing the exchange of glances between Mark and Lan Ju, the Crown Prince felt like they were going to do something reckless. What are you going to do? As soon as his words ended, a powerful aura was released and put pressure on everyone in the palace, save for a few individuals, Mark's companions including Qin Yu. Within 10 seconds, Yang Bingwen was already standing before them alongside Qin Mo, with both of them having serious expressions on their faces. Who are you? The Supreme Realm expert asked. Meanwhile, Emperor looked at his son. Mark raised his hand and Lan Ju retracted his aura. The old man shifted his attention to Mark. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. This young man looks like that powerful sect leader, Lan Jengsen. I heard that I cannot meet your emperor without permission, so I thought it is better for him to come to me, replied Mark, without wiping off the fake smile on his face. Inspecting the emperor, he further commented, who in the world could have expected that Emperor Qin is a Supreme Realm expert himself? The world is really full of surprises. Qin Yu was looking right and left in confusion, wondering whether he had listened correctly. His father is a Supreme Realm expert. Lu Zhen must have gone nuts. After all, it is well known that Qin Mo was once an Exalt Realm expert who received heavy injuries during an ambush and had his Cultivation realm dropped to 6th circle. During the past 3 decades, his cultivation remained the same. Qin Yu was under the impression that this guest of his has made a mistake, but his father's reaction gave the truth away. Both of you and Qin Yu, you two, follow me. Emperor Qin ordered them and turned around to walk away in seriousness. The Supreme Realm expert and the Crown Prince quietly followed him. However, after walking a few steps, the Emperor realized something amiss, and he turned around only to see that Mark didn't move an inch from his spot, and neither did his expression change. What was the meaning behind this smile? Don't think you are in any position to order me in that tone. The Emperor understood that way, and he concentrated on Mark once again. This time, he was quite surprised as he cannot sense anything from him. Is this young man a hidden expert? The Emperor turned a bit wary of Mark and cleared his throat before speaking a little bit more softly than earlier. It is uncomfortable to talk in this place. I believe you want to talk things in private too. Mark replied while continuing to maintain his smile. No, I'm not here for an important talk. I'm just here to do business by selling a certain type of weapon. Since you are already here then, let's go to a remote location where I demonstrate its prowess to you. If I did it here, the entire palace might turn into ruins. The Emperor narrowed his eyes and stared at Mark and the Supreme Being behind him, wondering if this fellow is Lu Zhen, the one Yang Bingwen earlier warned him about. Chapter 358, The Clash of Egos. It won't be a lie to say that Mark's attitude irked Emperor Qin very much. He was the ruler of an empire that is far more prosperous and stronger than the Phoenix Empire. How dare a weapon seller born in a commoner family try to cause trouble in the imperial palace, and even talk to him like they were equal? Is it because of the Supreme Being by his side? So what if it is? Qin Mo not only had authority, but he also possessed strength. Sure, Supreme Beings, Peak Nine Circle, stood at the top of human society, but that doesn't mean they can defeat multiple Supreme Realm experts, Nine Circle. The only reason they were feared by even the experts of the same realm is because of the factor known as a breakthrough. Once a Supreme Being makes a lucky breakthrough to the next realm and becomes a demigod, their strength would increase so much that if they want to destroy an empire, any number of Supreme Realm experts couldn't save it. However, Qin Mo was different. Unlike the facade he was putting up in front of the whole empire, he was actually a Supreme Realm expert and recently reached even the advanced stage. Adding on top of that, he received the knowledge of a formation left behind by his ancestor, who was a demigod. Upon activation, their ancestor's spirit will come to life and protect him. Of course, it doesn't mean he can use this trump any number of times he wants. The number might be limited, but it is still enough for him to stay arrogant. Qin Mo believed that by the time he uses all the remaining attempts of this protective mechanism, his fourth son won't be far away from becoming a demigod. That is why he didn't submit to the aura displayed by Lan Ju, unaware that the latter actually was holding back his strength. If Lan Ju transforms into his original form and releases the aura of a demigod, then the situation might completely turn in Mark's favor, but the latter was planning to keep it a secret as one of his trump cards. As a result, Qin Mo still thinks that he has an upper hand and didn't exactly listen to Mark's request right away. Instead, he said, "If you want to talk to me, then I will spare my time on the account of my son's request. However, if you are looking to do business in Kun Empire, then contact the Minister of Trade. And if you are looking to do business directly with the imperial family, then any prince of the first rank, son of the legal wife of the emperor, would be fine to witness the demonstration. The prince then passes the proposal to me, and I will take the decision after discussing it with my chief advisor. That's the protocol, and I expect you to follow the same." Perhaps Mark had already expected the attitude from Qin Mo as soon as he discovered his real cultivation. He didn't get angry inside, and neither did he display any other emotion on the outside. Continuing to keep his fake smile on the surface, Mark replied, "Well, I believe that there is always an exception to every rule. However, you aren't privileged enough for me to make an exception," Qin Mo countered immediately, not intending to give a face to Mark or his aide at any cost. He felt like he was already doing a huge favor by not demanding them to apologize. So in this situation, what will Mark do? Will he get angry? Will he yield to Qin Mo's authority and become polite? Will he leave the palace feeling humiliated? The Supreme Realm expert on Qin Mo's side was wondering how the situation will unfold now. He was worried about the eruption of the battle. But to his surprise, Mark calmly spoke. "Well, if I don't get a privilege, then I guess my weapons will also have the same place. That would mean the imperial family isn't business-friendly." "Then never mind, Emperor Qin. I will be on my way and sell my advanced weapons elsewhere. It is not like I don't lack clients. I thought that I should give preferential treatment to Kun Empire because Qin Yu is my friend, but it is a pity, I guess. Not only the Eastern Sun will get the warships to rule the Northern Sea, and the Leon Empire will get the opportunity to buy the C4, advanced, but your 500 battle tanks will also soon going to become vehicles of transport rather than a military asset. Well, none of this is related to me anyways, so I thank you for your hospitality and leave at dawn for my next destination, the Xianshu sect, to deliver justice for my companions. You can be on your way. Farewell and good night." He waved his hands with a smile. Mark talked down to Emperor and didn't take him seriously. Mark then boasted about the power of his weapons. Mark then indirectly threatened the Emperor of the consequences if the latter don't listen to his request right away. And in the end, he even purposely revealed an important thing like leaving for the sect, knowing very well that this old man is a grand elder there. From start to end, Mark didn't show his original emotion on his face, and just smiled as if he was delivering good news, but his words left a huge impact on the listeners. The crown prince didn't know what was going on. The emperor narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. No one knows what he was thinking about. And the worried Supreme Realm expert suddenly exclaimed in surprise, not expecting that this man would visit his place for delivering justice. To whom? What feud does his sect have with this weapon seller? Unlike Qin Mo, he wasn't arrogant enough to underestimate this supreme being, who was rumored to be the man behind the death of every expert in the Battle of Fire Seed. It is just a rumor as no one witnessed the events in person, but still, why is there a need for a fight when one can resolve it peacefully? Mr. Lu, there's no need to travel all the way to the Xianchu sect. I'm the grand elder of that very sect. Tell me your issue and I will solve it for you. As the old man correctly guessed Mark's identity just through the words and extended his hand of help, the weapon seller waved his hand. Relax, I have no issue with your sect. I'm only traveling there for the competition where I will deliver justice. I appreciate your help though. Dragon Warrior Tournament. Yang Bingwen was taken aback at first, but then he inwardly sighed in relief that his sect isn't in the picture. Meanwhile, the emperor's frown deepened as he saw a change of tone in Mark when he was speaking to the old man beside him. It was soft and friendlier. Why? I'm the emperor and I'm stronger than this idiot. Why is he more respected than me? This brat is purposely doing this to rile me up. It is not like my empire needs those things, and neither I'm afraid of enemies possessing them. Humph. Silently, standing behind Mark, Lan Ju was observing the emperor. As a demigod realm beast, he could easily sense the change in one's emotions just with a look. He felt like this situation isn't getting anywhere because of these two egoistic individuals. In the end, he decided to intervene and said in a calm tone, Emperor Qin, give me some face and follow my master's request. Master A. Chapter 359, The Might of C4 advanced. The moment Lan Ju spoke, all the arguments were shut down and the matter is settled. Perhaps it is because of his powerful cultivation, or perhaps it is because Lan Ju had admitted that he is a servant of Mark, not his backing. Or it might even be because Qin Mo wanted to get back at Mark for giving more respect to Yang Bingwen. Whatever the case, Emperor Qin had agreed to witness the demonstration of the weapon that Mark intended to sell to the imperial family. However, Mark wasn't happy. He felt the same that Qin Mo earlier felt. After killing immortal realm beasts in the trial, Mark was under the impression that he is more powerful than the Zheng, even in its peak state. With Lan Ju's loyalty crossed 50% and behaving really like a loyal servant lately, Mark was already feeling superior to the Zheng, and that is why he didn't like the sudden change in the behavior of the emperor. But then again, since he planned to remove him from the start, for the sake of achieving his goal, Mark suppressed his useless pride and followed the emperor to a remote location within the city. By the time they reached it, it was already too dark, and the lack of street lamps only made it darker. Of course, the low visibility shouldn't be a problem for Supreme Realm experts. Hence, neither the emperor was uncomfortable nor Mark was worried. Night vision is a passive ability of Supreme Realm experts that don't need any training, so Mark could see the area around him without any problems. However, Qin Yu wasn't strong enough to have such abilities. Hence, he couldn't see a thing. But still, since Mark promised him that the lack of night vision wouldn't hinder him to watch the demonstration, Qin Yu stayed hopeful. Upon confirming that there were no civilians in a 100-meter radius, Mark started walking forward alone while taking out a white-colored round object that looked more like a digital weighing machine. After walking for a while, he stopped at a 5-foot big rock and placed it on top of it before returning back to his companions, who were standing at least 90 meters away from the spot. "Is that the weapon, Mr. Lu?" asked the Grand Elder of the Xianchu sect. "And what will happen now?" Mark let out a smile and raised the remote in his hand. "Well, you can find it out with your own eyes." "Okay, do whatever you want to," said Qin Mo, displaying a bit of impatience. Mark ignored him and went on explaining to Qin Yu instead. He showed the digital meter on the remote. After we set the timer, it will be displayed here. Right now, I didn't set anything, so it was showing 0. Anyways, I will tell you the details on the way. But first things first, keep your eyes on your 1 o'clock. As Chin Yu nodded and looked in that direction, Mark went on to press the big red button placed at the bottom of the remote. Boom! Once he pressed it, in just a fraction of a second, an enormous explosion occurred before their eyes, turning nearly 3 acres of land into barren. The loud explosion startled the people living within a 1-kilometer radius, and even the others roaming the streets of the Imperial Jingyu city couldn't help but panic for a moment. Qin Yu stepped back in surprise and lost his footing, falling on his butt while his father, the emperor, turned serious. More than 11,000 meters of land was impacted with the explosion power of a low 5 circle. He remembered Mark's threat about the enemies possessing these weapons. If a single weapon can do this much damage, then what if 100 of them get detonated at once within the city? Not to mention, these can be operated by civilians. No, he cannot allow that to happen. Qin Mo's mind already started to think of a strategy for using these weapons, and he asked in curiosity, "Earlier, you pressed that button and the explosion happened. From how far can you do that? And how many can you provide within 1 month span of time?" "Yes, the fish is hooked." Mark wiped off his fake smile and replaced it with a genuine one upon realizing that the client is now curious about buying this. He turned his head and looked at the emperor. 100 meters is the maximum range one can operate this advanced version of C4 through this remote control. If not, you can set the timer beforehand and enjoy the explosion from far away too. As for how many, at the moment I have a limited number. But if you order in advance by next month on the same date, I can sell you not more than 1,000 in number. However, each one is priced at 700 gold coins. If you need a basic version, which has the power of a 4-circle strength detonation, a 25-meter radius, and comes without a remote, then it will cost you 150 gold coins per each. And if you wish to sell these explosives only for the Imperial family, then it will cost an additional 1 million gold coins per year. That means during that time, our weapon store will exclusively sell it to you, and only you. Of course, we will also pledge that our store will guarantee to sell you at least 10,000 of them during the booking time. So what do you think? 700 gold coins per each and 1 million for exclusive. Emperor Qin fell into deep thoughts, comparing its worth with a battle tank that costs 500 gold coins. Seeing Qin Mo pondering on the matter for a while, Mark further told him that he will be staying at the Xianshu sect until the end of the tournament, 4 days. The Imperial Palace can send its reply before he leaves for Lian Empire. The Emperor didn't say anything and silently nodded. After all, such an amount of money is not a small thing that he can casually spend on one-time usage explosives. The next day morning, the Bicorn carriages left the Imperial Palace and started the journey to their next destination, the Xianshu Mountain, which is located nearby the southwestern border of the Kun Empire and Lian Empire. Inside the front carriage, alongside Lan Ju, Baltro Manticore, and the Black Knight Song Yu, the Xianshu sect's Grand Elder Yang Bingwen also appeared to be traveling with them. He was interested to get into the good books of Lan Ju for his own selfish needs. If the Patriarch learns that he had the support of a supreme being, his position in the sect will become higher than the other 2 Grand Elders. It will increase his probability of becoming the next Patriarch once the current one retires. This was also the reason he personally made the trip to the Imperial Palace to invite Qin Mo and put forth the marriage proposal. Unfortunately for him, Lan Ju, who was sensitive to people's emotions and thoughts, already discovered this. Yet, he played along for the sake of his master's ambition. It is like they were trying to use each other for their own goals, except that Yang Bingwen will likely be abandoned once the tournament is finished. The time ticked, and the Bicorns were traveling at their peak speed, eventually reaching the place before sunset. Chapter 360, Mark goes to MT, Xianshu. Violet Peak, MT, Xianshu. At the third highest peak of the mountain, controlled by the Xianchu sect, 4 youngsters were panting hard as they lay on the ground. They just finished their spar with the strongest inner disciple of the Violet Peak. Yang Zhenqiao has already entered the prestigious Exalt realm and cannot participate in the tournament. He was merely giving pointers to these juniors who came from far with their elder, who is by the way his acquaintance. After stopping the spar, Yang Zhenqiao praised a couple of them. Miss AI and Mr. Wang are really skilled at combat. Both of you geniuses can hold off your own against a higher realm opponent. If luck is on your side, you can enter the top 30. Top 30. AI Qing and Wang Teng were surprised. When both of these 5 Circle Realm spirit warriors heard the praise from this good-natured senior, they were hopping for a better ranking figure, not mere top 30, and that too if luck favors them. As the representatives of the great Wuji sect, it is like humiliating to them. However, they don't want to unnecessarily get into a feud with this genius who had powerful connections. Wang Teng swallowed his pride and thanked the senior for his evaluation. By now, all the qualification matches must have been completed. I'm going to the main peak to check out the list of qualified individuals. Do either of you want to tag along? Yang Zhenqiao liked these 2 juniors because they not only have talent but don't show their arrogance. In his opinion, those who know the ways of the world will do great in their lives. They are worth befriending compared to those who go against the world for the sake of pride. That is why he extended friendship toward these 2 worthy individuals, not knowing that their impending doom has already on its way. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the mountain, Mark was arguing with his fiancée, trying to convince her to not climb with them. The others can only silently look at the couple with mixed feelings. My shats, there's Baltro here to take you up. Why do you want to trouble yourself? Listen to me. You can see how high the mountain is. On the other hand, Song Yue doesn't want to be treated like a princess. She said, no thank you. I can climb up there. It is only 5 kilometers of hiking right. It isn't as easy as you say. Mark tried to make her understand that trekking is different from walking on the ground. The path isn't that good. It is narrow and irregular, or else we would have taken the carriage to the top. That's fine with me. It is not like I'm a civilian and I don't want to depend on it too much. Song Yue continued to be stubborn. Having no other choice, Mark bent his body and suddenly picked up his fiancée, taking her by surprise. Marky, let me down. It is too embarrassing. Song Yue covered her face in shame as the people were staring at them. While Lan Ju and Yang Bingwen didn't think anything, the 2 young couple looked away while blushing, not being able to see such romance in the open as it is too much for them. As for Song Yun, his feelings were a bit complex. He was after all a conservative man. But then again, after seeing how happy her daughter was, he can only bless them in his heart and acted as if he didn't exist. The 2 coachmen also behaved like they didn't see anything. Mark didn't listen to her and said, I will give you 2 choices. 1, Baltro will take you there. 2, I will carry you like this all the way up to the top. What will you prefer? You always do things for me and don't let me do anything on my own. As Song Yue puffed her cheeks and complained in a mumble, Mark leaned his head to her ear and whispered, well then, don't do it for free. Let's see, a kiss for every kilometer. How about you repay me with 5 kisses tonight? Song Yue's face immediately turned red upon being teased by her fiancé. She tried to get free while playfully pushing away his chest. Get lost. As Mark refused to put her down in the end, she resigned to the ultimatum and reluctantly agreed to sit on the manticore's back, although not forgetting to complain that he is a bully. Ha ha ha, cute. Mark let out a laugh and put her down before proceeding to Violet Peak, leaving their bicorn carriages at the stables located at the foot of the mountain. As no one is in a hurry, the mountain hiking lasted for about a couple of hours before finally passing through the gate. The sunset hasn't arrived yet, so everyone could clearly see the Grand Elder escorting Mark and others. Combined with Mark and Song Yue's great looks, they attracted so much attention that none of the spectators could turn away their heads and look elsewhere. As Yang Bingwen was personally escorting them to the lodging areas, from the other side, Yang Zhenqiu appeared to be walking with the beauty. Both of them were all smiles as they were in their own world, chatting with each other and almost ignoring their surroundings. Both of the parties were now in a distance where they can see each other, and Dong Fang's expression turned sour as soon as he saw them. He couldn't control his emotions and roared in anger, "Ai Ching." The beauty beside Yang Zhenqiu startled for a moment and looked in the direction of the voice. Her face darkened instantly. "Dong Fang, Zai Ling, these guys are alive after all." As Dong Fang was ready to charge forward and attack her, his arm was caught by Mark. "This is not the right time." Dong Fang didn't dare to move after being warned by Mark, but he couldn't help but look at her with hatred. Zai Ling was silent, but she too hatefully glared at the woman who she thought was a friend, but instead turned out to be a spy from their rival sect. The two parties walked toward each other amidst the curious gazes of the participants and the inner sect disciples of the Violet Peak. Yang Zhenqiu observed the expressions of the girl beside him and the strangers who were beside the Grand Elder. He neither asked her nor did he leave her side. He accompanied her and calmly greeted the old man. "Grand Elder Yang." The old man didn't pay attention to either the girl or the people beside him, not intending to involve in their matters. He calmly nodded in response and said, "Zhenqiu, go and bring Elder Yang to my residence. Oh, and also inform Patriarch that I'm busy accompanying a distinguished guest. Hence, I cannot meet him at the moment." From the corner of his eyes, Yang Zhenqiu took a glance at the people who were tagging along with his great-granduncle. His attention was mostly grabbed by the silent, middle-aged-looking fellow and the manticore. As for the others, he didn't spare a glance and cupped his fists. "Understand." "Miss Ai, come." Yang Zhenqiu dragged the girl along with him, taking her away from Mark's group. She too was silent after realizing the identity of the Grand Elder based on earlier conversation. Chapter 361. The Four Representatives of Kunlun Sect. Once they left out of his sight, Yang Bingwen let out a sigh of relief and inquired about the matter with Mark. "Is that girl belong to the Wuji sect, the one who betrayed those two kids?" "It doesn't have anything to do with the Xianshu sect, Mr. Yang, so it is better off you knowing," Mark replied coldly before realizing that his true thoughts were being exposed. He immediately corrected his tone and expression. "Don't worry, we won't do anything that will hurt your sect's fame." Yang Bingwen was slightly displeased by the rude remark from Mark, but keeping his goal in his mind, he forced himself to smile and acted as if he wasn't bothered by the earlier comment. He let out a sigh and said, "No, I was just worried about my great-grandnephew, the lad you met earlier. He appeared to have a liking to her. I rarely see him accompany a female disciple in our sect." "Then, you better warn him to stay away from her, for her fate is sealed whether she met us in the competition or not. Or else." Mark doesn't want to be harsh on this respected Grand Elder, but the words just come out of his mouth before he realized the problem, and he had to correct his tone later as this old man's usefulness hasn't come to an end. "I mean that it is better for the both of us if he doesn't stand in our way to punish a traitorous woman who plotted the death of several individuals. As his ancestor, I believe that you can convince him to not associate himself with the Wuji sect." Mark doesn't need such a lengthy explanation, but he had to act like a boss, but not an arrogant one, because there are people watching them. They weren't mere spectators. They were messengers who will deliver the news of his firearms to their regions. With everything going in his favor, the news of the Grand Elder personally escorting Mark and his companions, followed by the Patriarch making a personal visit to meet him, had spread to even the other peaks. People couldn't help but try to guess his identity. But then again, not everyone is curious to know about this guest. After all, the tournament is the main attraction, and moreover, there's news that Emperor himself is going to attend the opening ceremony too. The next day at dawn, Mark and his companions left the Grand Elder's residence where they were guests last night, and they proceeded to the highest peak of the mountain, known as the main peak, White Peak. The disciples of the White Peak became the hosts, spreading from the entrance to the arena. Just like its name, every inner sect disciple of White Peak wore white robes, and with their pale faces, Several of them really looked like ghosts in fairy tales, but no one dared to comment about it as it is considered a sore spot for those disciples. Of course, Mark could care less about their feelings, but his current attention wasn't exactly on their appearances, but rather on their gender. He saw a lot of female disciples and participants walking around. Mark couldn't help but casually comment, "I should say that the North is really progressive. Back in the Phoenix Empire, I don't think there were any sects that accept both genders." In response, Song Yue then voiced her opinion. "Well, you can see mixed groups in guilds, though." Yang Bingwen then commented, "When one has power, they have the freedom to choose their life. And no matter what kind of society it is, the beliefs of the highest authority will reflect the entire land as more and more time passed." "Well, I won't object to that," replied Mark. He added while remembering his biological father's face, "That is why it is necessary for an emperor to be a role model for his citizens." Song Yue fell silent when she heard that, and she immediately grabbed his arms to console him, knowing what he was thinking about. The others, on the other hand, didn't think much and only assumed that it is just a part of the conversation. Perhaps, the only one who misunderstood is the Grand Elder, who assumed that Mark was talking about Emperor Qin. Meanwhile, inside the arena, a few qualified participants lined up in front of a giant stone slab placed in the middle of the field. 9 large markings in the shape of stars were inscribed on top of this mysterious object. And right before the stone slab, there was a thin and transparent blue-colored barrier, which will test one's age. There was an elder with 8 circle cultivation standing on its right, and Yang Zhenqiao, the inner sect disciple of Violet Peak, was standing on its left with an empty scroll in his hand. "Your invitation letter, please," Elder asked the group standing at the front. One of them handed it to the old man and the latter looked at it. "Luo sect, 3 slots." He then looked at the group. "Are you the 3?" he asked. As the 3 teenagers nodded in response, the elder told them to proceed with the test. The first one walked forward and pressed his palm against the stone slab, inserting his ether energy into it. The moment he did that, 5 stars lit up and the elder nodded in satisfaction. 5 circle realm cultivation. Next. He pointed at the handsome-looking young man on the other side of the stone slab. Yang Zhenqiao asked for his name and recorded it in the scroll using ether energy writing. One after another, the participants went through the test and recorded their names so that it becomes easier for the sect to arrange the match fixtures, especially these spirit warriors from the same sect who came through recommendations without facing any preliminary battles. Every time, there will be 128 spirit warriors participating in the tournament, of which 64 slots were reserved for people from the well-known sects, and the other 64 will be decided through preliminary rounds. Not all the sects were given an equal amount of slots. Luo sect, for example, was given 3 slots while Wuji and Kunlun sects were given 4 slots each. As for the host, the Xianchu sect has the right to reserve 8 slots for their disciples. Of course, this didn't mean that the sects with reserved slots can send whoever they can. They will have to adhere to the rules of the competition too. Some of the sects with only 1 or 2 slots tried to act smart, trying to fool them by faking their age. However, they underestimated the Xianchu sect's age-detecting barrier. It accurately guessed whether one's real age is below 30 or not. As a result, 5 cultivators were disqualified from the tournament and became a laughingstock in front of the other sect representatives. After parting ways with Song Yue and others at the entrance, Mark, Zai Ling, Dong Fang, and coachman Dai Qiu made their way toward the stone slab. Zai Ling and Dong Fang didn't have a bit of nervousness on their faces, and they appeared to be quite determined with a clear goal in their mind. Mark, on the other hand, looked like someone who didn't care about the competition. He was leisurely observing the arena. And the remaining one, Dai Qiu, was sweating like hell. His face was pale, his eyes were red as if he didn't sleep all night, and his heart was beating very fast as he followed Mark. What kind of trouble do I put myself into? Chapter 362. I don't question my master's actions. Dai Qiu was originally a low-level adventurer whose team ended up in a mishap against a fierce beast of 5 circle when they explored a dungeon. Since then, he didn't join the teams and mostly worked as a temporary coachman for nobles. From time to time, he fought against bandits and lower realm assassins, but it is because he had to protect his client, and there was no other choice. However, at the present, there is nothing at stake here. Why should he go and risk his life in a competition he didn't have any interest in? Unfortunately for Dai-Q, he wasn't given the option to choose. Because that so-called light elemental spirit merged with his body, he was told to join the Kunlun sect, for that spirit belonged to the sect. If he doesn't listen, then he will be hunted down. While he was contemplating on whether to run away with his life when these two teenagers become busy in the tournament battles, Mark put forth another proposition, which he was only told to agree to it without any negotiations. Mark promised that the Kunlun sect will forget the matter, and he will have his freedom as long as he will enter top 32, and then follows him to the Kunlun sect to formally apologize for taking their treasure. Now, Dai-Q could ignore the demands of the teenagers, but Mark, he was the royal guest of Eastern Sun, and to some extent, even the Kun Empire, if include the Western Moon Kingdom and Phoenix Empire, where he could run away if he offends such a person. Hence, the poor adventurer turned coachman became a participant, representing the Kunlun sect alongside Mark, Zai Ling, and Dong Fang. The Xianshu doesn't care whether Mark and Dai-Q belong to the Kunlun sect or not. It entirely depends on the Kunlun sect of who to choose. It is not a problem whether the representative is an outsider. It was at this point that Mark took advantage of, and was participating in the place of dead seniors of Dong Fang and Zai Ling. Soon, Mark and the other 3 joined the line. They only have 4 members in front, so it won't be long before their turn comes up. However, their strength appeared to be anything but ordinary. Show your invitation here. Okay, step through the barrier and place your palm on the artifact. 6 Circle Realm. Good, please go and register your names. 6 Circle Realm. 6 Circle Realm. 6 Circle Realm. Because of the high number of participants, the legendary realm expert didn't bother to sense each one's cultivation realm, and didn't pay much attention to the group that is filled with only teenagers. How could he have expected to meet upper elite realm cultivators in a row? Naturally, he was taken aback and took a glance at them one more time and mumbled. It appeared that the Iron Palm sect is going all out after losing half of their strength. One of the 4 representatives of the sect glanced in the elder's direction as he heard those words. His face turned serious, but he didn't speak anything, and turned around his head before walking away toward the participants section, even though they knew that the matches will only start 3 hours later. As for Mark, he wasn't that dedicated or determined. After Dong Fang and Zai Ling were done with their registrations, he calmly walked through the barrier and placed his palm on the stone slab, which is a semi-divine artifact according to the details displayed on the holographic screen before Mark's eyes. Once he was done, he went back to meet Song Yue before they went on a tour. Surprisingly, Yang Bingwen too tagged along with them and became a tour guide. Previously, the disciples of the White Peak only heard the rumors, and now that they were witnessing it with their own eyes, their curiosity toward this group has increased quite exponentially. Why Grand Elder Yang is escorting them? Do you know who they are? I heard that they were representing Kunlun sect. Is that Beast King belong to their sect's master or something? It looks so mighty. I should say I'm envious of that guy. His wife is so pretty. Oh my God, his smile, I think I'll fall in love with that young master. He is so handsome. SHHH, mind your manners. I felt like he has the air of a prince. Even his looks, age, and cultivation realm are similar to the 4th prince. I wonder whether he is a prince of Leon Empire or Phoenix Empire. Humph, it's just your overestimation. The 4th prince is a heavenly genius. Someone like him couldn't hold a candle against Qin Zhai. I wonder who that middle-aged looking fellow is. I cannot sense any cultivation. He must be powerful. Who knows, he might be a hidden expert. As Mark was roaming around the main peak, mainly the training grounds, Judgment Hall, cultivation caves where spiritual energy is far higher, merit shops where disciples exchange their merits for items or techniques, meditation center, etc. Murmurings filled the entire place with almost every disciple and participant who recognizes the old man murmuring one thing or another. Mark had no interest to care about others. As the guy who wanted to revive the land sect, he just wanted to see how a sect functions and what are the essential things that he needs to pay attention for. After a couple of hours, he returned to the main arena where people started filling up the audience seats. Just like Mark, the other participants also have people tagged along with them to support them. Along with the disciples from the other peaks, they too sat down. Meanwhile, Song Yue and others were taken to the VIP section, where important guests, elders and grand elders will sit. The grand elder introduced Song Yue to them. They have heard of the weapon seller and his exploits so far, so they weren't surprised by either the golden kitten sleeping in her arms or the manticore. However, Lan Ju is different, who was a supreme being, like their patriarch, so his presence attracted their attention the most. Ignoring the lady who kept her eyes on the arena's field, the sex patriarch struck up a conversation with Lan Ju. He inquired about Mark's chances in the tournament. Of course, he wanted to know why Mark is representing the Kunlun sect, which should have no connection with the weapon seller as far as their sources say. But even a fellow supreme being like Patriarch Zai cannot ask him because of the fact that this fellow named Wu Weibao has mysterious origins. This is the problem with old and wise people. Sometimes they think too much about the matter, trying to get to the bottom only to get nowhere in the end. But oftentimes, they will also guess it right. The same thing happened here too. To his earlier question, he received an ambiguous reply from the Zheng. I don't question my master's actions, Patriarch Zai. There's always a reason behind them. And in the next second, the patriarch of the Xianchu sect was already in deep thinking, trying to search for the hidden meaning behind Lan Ju's words. Chapter 363, Zai Zhang's Thoughts. Lan Ju only wanted to tell him that he trusts Mark's decisions and don't unnecessarily question them, but Zai Zhang understood it differently as he analyzed those deeply. Why a supreme being accepted a commoner as his master in the first place when even the emperors had to greet them in respect? Such loyalty can only occur by two things. 1. The guy has a strong hidden background. 2. The guy forced the supreme being into servitude. Feeling that the second option is out of the question, Zai Zhang concluded that Mark belonged to the first option. The existence of firearms and the Kunlun sect's support for Mark only increased his suspicion. Now, the only question that remained in Zai Zhang's mind is why Mark is participating in this tournament. For a person who had a supreme being as his servant, a manticore as a mount, and a beast emperor kitten as a pet, the rewards from the tournament shouldn't entice him. Hence, there's another motive, perhaps revenge. It is not uncommon that arrogant young masters wanted to take revenge with their own hands, so maybe it was just that. Zai Zhang formed his own theory, based on an ambiguous answer from Lan Ju. Mark's arrival did bring confusion to the patriarch of the Xianchu sect, but thankfully, it also saved his face a little bit, considering the emperor sent a letter about skipping the opening ceremony but promising to attend the finals. Back to the arena, once the matchups were done according to one's cultivation, making sure that neither fellow 6-circle realm experts become opponents, nor do a 4-circle realm spirit warrior will face a 6-circle cultivator. Well, at least until round 32. The legendary realm expert, Elder of the Scarlet Peak, 4th highest, Gao Su became the proctor of all the battles. He started by speaking the rules, after speaking a few words about the tournament for formality. The Dragon Warrior Tournament, which only occurs once every 10 years, is considered the most prestigious tournament in the continent, not just because of the impressive rewards and the participation of the most talented cultivators from sects, but it is also because the top 8 spirit warriors will also be qualified for the Void Tournament. If the Dragon Warrior Tournament is a continental one, then Void Tournament is a worldwide one. Coming to the rules, Currently, round 128 will start. Due to the fact that 5 seeded candidates from various sects ended up being disqualified, 5 lucky individuals will proceed to the next round without any battle. Obviously, it is going to be the warriors with the highest potential. Of the remaining 123, there were about 19 of them in the 6-circle realm. 5 out of those 19 got a bye and proceed to the next round. Unfortunately, Mark wasn't one of them. But he didn't think he wasn't unlucky, though. After all, his goal is something else, and he needs as many opportunities as he can get to fulfill his goal. As for how the battle goes, there was a large platform placed in the middle of the arena. It was 50 meters wide, 100 meters long, and 2 meters in height. As long as the participant's body touches the ground, he/she loses. Flying is allowed but not greater than 50 meters above the ground and 5 meters away from the platform. If this rule is broken, then the participant will lose the match too. Other than that, killing is absolutely allowed. However, only before the participant admits his defeat or before the proctor announces that the said participant is in no condition of battle. The weapons and artifacts are allowed no matter whom they belong to, but the contracted beast is not allowed to support its ally master. As for the rewards, there are different ones for different rankings, but the one that is worthy to be described were the rewards for the first 4 ranks. The 4th ranker will receive 10,000 gold coins, a fierce grade beast egg of chosen attribute, and a platinum grade weapon. The 3rd ranker will receive 20,000 gold coins, a beast king egg, and a platinum grade weapon. The runner-up will receive 30,000 gold coins, either a direct chance to form a contract with a 6-circle realm beast king that has no master or a beast king egg, and a platinum grade weapon and armor set. And the winner will receive a huge amount of 100,000 gold coins, a chance to form a contract with a 7-circle realm beast king with no master or a beast king egg, a platinum grade armor set, and a semi-divine grade weapon. And finally, an opportunity to seek guidance in cultivation directly from the Void Temple. The Void Temple is an organization that conducts these Dragon Warrior tournaments in all the continents every decade, followed by the Void Tournament at the end. It is said that one of the 3 demigod realm beasts of the world was the guardian of this Void Temple, and there's also a rumor that a demigod cultivator was hiding in that temple's headquarters. How much of that is true, no one knows. However, one knows that the organization is far stronger than any empire's army or any individual sect, just based on the fact that they have at least 3 supreme beings and a dozen supreme realm experts. Unknown to the rest of the world, who knows how many more such experts were hiding there. Anyways, back to the tournament. After the recital of the rules was over, the proctor went on to announce a spar between 2 grand elders of the sect, following the tradition of the tournament. This practice not only showcases the strength of the hosting sect, but also helps the youngsters in widening their horizons. Who knows, some of these geniuses can learn a thing or two after watching advanced realm experts fight. Everyone but Mark was intently staring at the arena. They were excited to watch the sparring between 2 supreme realm experts. Even the grand elders sitting beside the patriarch were ready. Little did they expect Zai Zhang to suddenly change a decision. He stopped them from going to the field and cupped his fists toward Lan Ju. "Brother Wu, if you don't mind, I would like to spar with you. Will you accept this selfish request of mine?" Huh? Everyone else quickly turned their heads to look at the patriarch. Lan Ju too blankly stared at him, wondering what this fellow was thinking. Trying to get yourself humiliated. As if Zai Zhang understood what everyone was wondering about, he gave his reasoning before Lan Ju gave his answer. Usually, it is an incredibly rare thing for 2 supreme beings to be standing in the same location. Zai Zhang too had never battled a person in the same realm, and such opportunities were even rarer. Perhaps he wanted to experience how strong he is compared to other supreme beings. Even after Lan Ju warned him that he will be putting the stake the reputation of his sect in the process, Zai Zhang didn't back down from the request. After all, what's fame? It will change based on the circumstances. Not to mention, It was just a spar anyways. Since there was nothing to lose for him here, Lan Ju agreed to the spar and both of them slowly rose into the air, flew toward the battle platform and landed on it, taking everyone by surprise. Patriarch Zai is personally showcasing his abilities. This will be awesome. Hey, who is that expert beside him? Is he a grand elder? No, he is not. I think he is the servant of that handsome guy. Wow, no wonder he was given the royal treatment. I'm curious about his background. I heard that Patriarch Zai is one of the few grandmaster swordsmen in the world. He could use even grass as a blade. I'm excited. The spectators started discussing among themselves as the two powerful beings landed on the platform and looked at each other. Brother Wu will follow the same rules as the participants. The match will end when one of us steps outside of the ring. Zai Zhang spoke in a polite tone and cupped his fists. We'll start when you are ready. Lan Ju nodded in silence. Zai Zhang created an energy sword and went into his battle stance. Lan Ju did the same, indicating that it is going to be a sword fight. Looking at that, a smile appeared on Zai Zhang. Good, we'll compare our sword skills then. He charged forward as soon as the proctor blew the whistle. Lan Ju, on the other hand, didn't move from the spot without displaying any expression on his face. Come on. Chapter 364.1 Dragon Warrior Tournament, Part 1. Thud. Zai Zhang flew out of the ring and crashed onto the ground. However, he didn't wake up and lay there motionlessly, causing a great panic among the disciples of the sect. The proctor hurriedly went to him and checked his condition. He is not dead. He sighed in relief upon finding that the sect's patriarch was just knocked out. Don't worry. A voice was heard from his behind and he glanced at Lan Ju. The latter continued while walking calmly toward them. I just struck his chin, which affected his brain, leading to that state. He will be all right within a couple of minutes. The elder then rose to his feet and took a deep bow in fear and respect to this supreme being who ended the spar in 2 moves after defending himself from Zai Zhang's barrage of sword attacks for a couple of minutes. Thank you for the demonstration. No problem. Lan Ju waved his hand. If there's nothing else, I'll be going back to my seat then. He flew toward the VIP section and landed beside Song Yue, calmly taking his seat as if the earlier spar isn't a big deal. However, for the spectators, it was something else entirely. They didn't feel like they have watched a spar between 2 supreme beings. Instead, it was like some inner sect disciple sparring against an elder. From the start to finish, Lan Ju was in control of the flow of the battle. And when he realized that he had played enough, he cut down Zai Zhang's energy sword with his energy sword and then gave a powerful uppercut to his opponent's chin, ending the match. Now, this spar increased the attention Mark received from everyone. He could feel gazes from all sides but stayed calm and kept his eyes on the field as the proctor announced the start of the battles. First match, Lu Wan of Star Sect versus Jia Yang of Xianchu Sect. Lu Wan is a 5-circle realm spirit warrior and Jia Yang is a 6-circle realm expert. The latter might be of similar age but she was more experienced in battles. In fact, this is her 2nd time participating in the Dragon Warrior Tournament. The last time, she went as far as the top 16. So it is clear that she is the favorite to win, and no one doubted it. Some people felt pity for the lad who had to face her of all the people. However, Mark rooted for the seemingly weaker one instead, not because they have the same surname though. There are thousands of families out there with the same surname, and they were not related to each other. His opinion is based on the information he saw on the holographic screen. His identity appeared to be slightly special. Lu Wan. Race human. Age 28. Rank 5 advanced state. Spirit path swordsman Mei. Attribute metal. Bloodline bronze dragon. Affiliation Leon Empire. Description: a talented spirit warrior from Star Sect, a minor sect located in Leon Empire's towering mountains. Due to having 2 spirit paths, his road of cultivation is also double the work. A sword mage, This is the first time I was actually seeing this type of person. interesting from the very first match itself. Meanwhile, on the battle platform, the two participants were standing nearly 20 meters apart from each other, waiting for the signal. As soon as the proctor blew the whistle, both of them charged forward with swords in their hands. The battle went on for 10 minutes without any result. According to the rules, if a match becomes a draw, then the one with lower realm cultivation will be declared the winner and proceed to the next round. And if both of them were in the same realm, then the judges, 3 grand elders of the Xianchu sect, will make the decision by voting. As a result, Lu Wan was declared the winner and Jia Yang exited the arena in depression. Seeing that Lu Wan didn't reveal either the powers of a mage or his bloodline abilities, Mark's impression of him improved a bit. He noted down the name in his mind. Meanwhile, the morale of the Xianchu sect members became quite low. First, Zai Zhang lost badly to an outsider, and then one of the top contestants of the hosting sect ended up being defeated by an opponent of the lower realm. How could they feel good? Thankfully, it didn't stay that way for a very long time. During the next 60 minutes, 8 out of 59 scheduled matches were completed. Unlike the very first match, there were no surprises in these matches. The one with a higher cultivation level won it and proceeded to the next round. And then, the proctor proceeded to announce the next match, making every single spectator focus on the battle platform. Zai Mei of Xianchu sect versus Liang Cheng of MT, Hua sect. As the 15-year-old beauty stood up from her seat and took a giant leap, landing directly on the middle of the platform, which is at least 150 meters away from the audience section, Mark's attention was grabbed by her. He then heard Zai Ling gossip to Dong Feng. I heard that she is the illegitimate daughter of Patriarch Zai. Dong Feng appeared to be surprised by her statement. He looked at her and asked, "But isn't he like 200 years old?" Zai Ling shrugged her shoulders. Men are men in the end. You see a beautiful woman and you forget about everything. Hey, that's not true. Not everyone would be interested in romance. Dong Feng argued with her. He added, I, for one, only love the sword and nothing else. Humph, as if, every time I see you, there's always a different girl on your side. Zai Ling counterattacked with a look of displeasure on her face, to which Dong Feng defended himself. They were just older sisters who wanted to guide me. Yeah, right. Ignoring this teenage couple bickering, Mark focused on the girl as her opponent slowly climbed the stage. Once again, he activated his sage eyes to take a look at her information. Celestial. A look of surprise appeared on his face for a moment before he read the rest of the details. Zai Mei. Race, human celestial. Age 15. Rank 6 peak stage. Spirit path, archer. Attribute, divine lightning water. Bloodline, NA. Affiliation, Kun Empire heavenly domain. Description: born as a child of a human and a pure celestial from heaven, the girl was born with divine energy and no limiters. Divine energy, no limiters. Mark's eyes lit up in excitement as he saw her details. Staring at her, he only had a single thought in his mind. If I bring her to my side, then I would be able to travel to other worlds without any tension. Now the only question is how. And the answer to his doubt came to him as he watched the battle. Instead of simply defeating her opponent by knocking him out or throwing him out of the ring, Zai Mei opted for a different route. After destroying all of his abilities, she trapped him in a cell made of arrows and injured him little by little. If one should see it objectively, she destroyed his willpower by torture. Of course, in her eyes it was justified as she wanted to make an example out of him for trying to look down on her sect. However, the others felt like she was a sadist and they don't want to face her. On the other hand, Mark had a smile on his face as he found a way to achieve his goal. Arrogance and loyalty to the sect. I guess I should trample on the sect's pride to make her willingly walk into the trap. But then again, I might not meet their representatives. So, I guess I should ruthlessly trample on the dignity of spirit warriors itself. Then all I would need to do is to make a couple of insults on her sect, while making sure to not touch her bottom line by speaking about the patriarch. That's not a bad idea. I'm here to promote modern weapons anyways. I might as well make everyone understand that there's no need to train so hard to master a bunch of techniques when they have a gun in their hand. However, his goal of recruiting her can only be accomplished if they meet in the battle. After reading her information and watching her battle, Mark was confident that she will go to finals without any problem. That means, as long as he wins his battles, he will be bound to meet her sooner or later. Never in the world did he or anyone for that matter expect that there would be another contestant who will become an obstacle in her path to the finals. Chapter 365.2 Dragon Warrior Tournament, Part 2. The battles continued. After Zai Mei's win, the morale of the Xianxu sect disciple improved a lot, which only became better as 3 more individuals proceeded to the next round. Combined with 2 buys now, the Xianxu sect has 6 members who went to round 64, and most of the disciples were now completely relaxed as they watched the rest of the battles. It was around noon. For better or for worse, 32 matches were already completed in the past 3 hours. There were only 27 matches to go, and the crowd is quite less in the stands compared to the morning now that all the matches of Xianxu sect representatives were over. Mark started to get slightly restless as he was sitting there for hours, and he doesn't know when his turn will come. Not only him, but even his fellow representatives haven't battled yet. Another reason for Mark's impatience is that he couldn't see any other worthy individuals after Lu Wan and Zai Mei that are worth recruiting. Hence, he felt like he was wasting his time and energy, and wanted to leave the place and stroll around, but his goal kept on reminding him to not move from the spot. And his patience is finally rewarded with the appearance of a familiar person, although for Dong Fang, it is going to become a nightmare. Dong Fang of Kunlun sect versus Meng Tao of Five Lakes sect. Okay, wish me luck, Sister Zai. Dong Fang stood up from his seat and made his way to the battle platform. Along with him, another person rose to his feet. Mark's eyes were glued to him while remembering their meeting in the past. They have only met once, but Mark, who now has 9 points of intelligence, cannot forget anything he heard or saw in the past. With perfect recall, all he needs is a thought, and he would be able to remember the exact words of a conversation with a stranger from even a decade ago. When Mark met him for the first time in the town of Daqing, Meng Tao introduced himself as Pan Tao, a traveling peddler. He appeared like a good fellow, warning them about thieves, scammers, and the Meng clan. But that isn't the point. Back then, he was not even at one circle. Now, within a few months, he was already eligible for the Dragon Warrior Tournament. It's not like he had a system like Mark that he can cultivate at a fast pace. So, that means he was either faking it back then, or he was met with a fortuitous encounter in the wild just like the coachman Daiqiu. And so, Mark became curious and inspected him only to find an interesting piece of information. The Kilin, I wonder whether it is the same Kilin that destroyed Land Sect. If it is, then I might be able to find the answers. The battle started, and Dong Fang took the opportunity to act first. With a saber in his hand, he charged forward at his maximum speed, which is actually comparable to that of an assassin of the Sixth Circle realm. However, Meng Tao didn't appear to be shaken by it. He stood on his spot with a calm-looking face. Once Dong Fang reached him, Meng Tao spun around to dodge the saber and kicked him in the back. Dong Fang lost his balance as he moved past his opponent. As he was about to regain his footing, Meng Tao suddenly took out a peculiar weapon from his storage ring. It's a rocket launcher. How did he get his hands on that thing? I don't remember selling it to him, wondered Mark as Meng Tao clicked the trigger and shot a 110 warhead, aiming at his opponent's right foot. It missed its target and hit the floor. The contact with an external physical object triggered the detonation, and a huge explosion was seen on the battle platform, blasting away the teenager. From the point of impact, everything around in the 30-meter radius turned to dust. In the middle of a battle platform, a large crater was formed while a heavily injured Dong Fang crashed onto the edge of the platform. In the meantime, Meng Tao was also affected by the blast radius, but he protected himself with a wall of ether energy barrier. So, only superficial injuries were left on him as he landed on the floor. What the hell was that skill? What is that thing? Who is that young man? Why I haven't heard of him before? I have never seen such an artifact in my life. But it appears that it is not a skill, considering he was also injured. That blast is quite similar to the effects of that explosive potion, but I don't think the potion's effects are this strong. Half of the spectators rose to their feet in shock, and they started discussing majorly the weapon in Meng Tao's hand. Meanwhile, at the VIP section, one of the Grand Elders spoke. Grand Elder Yang, wasn't that weapon quite familiar to you? Yeah, it is one of those things called firearms, right? Commented another Grand Elder. Yang Bingwen meaningfully stared at Song Yue and nodded in response. The latter confirmed their suspicion. It is called a rocket launcher, one of the most powerful firearms sold by my husband. With over 1,000 gold coins of price, it has the power to launch a warhead that has the power to eradicate anyone below the 5-circle realm. By the way, that piece of warhead only costs 5 gold coins. As the only person who knows about Mark's future plans, Song Yue took the opportunity to promote the rocket launcher to these elders, even though she was prepared to do it after Mark's performance. If these Grand Elders didn't have any knowledge of firearms beforehand, they might have been tempted to keep a few in their sect's storage chamber, just in case. But they already knew about the rocket launcher and other weapons. Hence, none of the Grand Elders showed any interest. They looked like they didn't even hear her and put their attention on the battle platform, which is repaired by the proctor. The 8-circle realm expert used his earth attribute to create a large concrete slab out of thin air, making the platform look as good as new. Since Yang Bingwen brought her to the VIP section, he took the responsibility to reply to her, commenting that it is an interesting invention. Meanwhile, Zai Ling rushed forward into the field and picked up her friend after his injuries were healed by the healers. She hatefully glared at Meng Tao's back as he exited the arena, not intending to watch the rest of the matches. 2 more hours passed away and only 11 matches left to go. Zai Ling and Dai Qiu finished their respective matches. Both of them went to the next round. Dongfang looked depressed as his goal of taking revenge with his own hands didn't materialize. However, luckily for him, when Mark was called to the arena, there's another familiar person was also called. His expression changed. Hao Shuren of Wuji sect versus Lu Zhen of Kunlun sect. Lu Zhen beat him. Dongfang cheered for Mark in his heart. He even wanted to cheer out loud, but just as he got up from his seat, he saw Mark take out a familiar-looking destructive weapon from his storage ring. What the? It's the same thing that Meng Tao used, right? Zai Ling shook his shoulder with a look of surprise on her face. Neither of them had ever heard of the name Lu Zhen or the firearms for that matter. All they know is that he had powerful connections and powerful subordinates. Hence, he cannot be offended. It was only now they realized something was wrong. Seeing the weapon in their hands and remembering that Meng Tao also belonged to Phoenix Empire, they made a connection. And before they got out of that shock, Mark's actions shocked them once again. Get ready. As soon as the proctor blew the whistle, Mark's opponent backed away instantly, trying to be careful to not get hit with that. He saw what it could do and wouldn't want to risk his life. Looking at the guy who was moving around in circles, Mark calmly inserted the warhead and then took out another item from his storage ring. He pulled the pin with his teeth and threw it on the ground. A thick amount of smoke was released into the surroundings, blocking the vision of the opponent and the spectators. Meanwhile, Mark closed his eyes and thought, what in his exact position land you? In the next second, he opened his eyes with a smile and clicked on the trigger, aiming in his 2 o'clock direction. Happy Death Day. Boom. Chapter 366.3, Dragon Warrior Tournament, Part 3. The same type of explosion was seen once again. However, this time, it wasn't just the platform that was destroyed. The opponent who blasted away and crashed onto the ground had severe degree burns, and by the time the proctor reached him, how Shuren lost his life. Unlike Meng Tao, Mark struck him directly with the intention to kill. The five-circle realm spirit warrior at the elementary stage didn't think of using an energy barrier to protect himself, and only thought of trying to locate his opponent. As a result, when he was struck by the warhead, his body couldn't defend itself against the damage inflicted upon him and ended up dying. No, no. Two screams echoed simultaneously from the participants' section, and an old man entered the field to pick up the dead body. The winner is Lu Zhen of the Kunlun sect. The proctor announced the winner after sensing that Mark was still on the battle platform. After it was announced, Mark calmly walked to the edge and jumped down onto the ground before returning to his seat to watch the rest of the matches. He wanted to see if there were any other potential spirit warriors who can be recruited. Not many winners of round 128 had left the arena like Meng Tao. After finishing their matches, they returned to their seats to observe their future opponents in order to formulate a strategy for the win. So there was quite a crowd in the participants section as Mark returned, and every one of them paid attention to him because he was the only one who killed his opponent so far in the current round. And that too, with the same weapon Meng Tao used in his match. If one person used it, then it can be considered a strange type of artifact. But if another person also used an identical-looking artifact, then it can be considered a mass-produced product. Hence, they were curious about the weapon. Because Mark was sitting alone now, as Zai Ling and Dai Qiu were accompanying Dong Feng at the normal audience section, someone gathered courage and approached him while the proctor was dispersing the smoke and repairing the platform. "Excuse me, are you owner Lu from Phoenix Empire?" A rough voice was heard from the side, gaining the attention of nearby participants. A couple of participants started whispering among themselves. Phoenix Empire, wasn't he from the Kunlun sect? Earlier, that guy named Meng Tao is from Phoenix Empire. That's why this fellow probably misunderstood it. Why did he address him as owner Lu then? Only the store owners, restaurant owners, and landlords were addressed that way. Who knows? Meanwhile, some participants who belonged to the sects of the Phoenix Empire fell into thoughts, realizing something they should have done long ago. They couldn't help but stare in the direction of Mark. As for Mark, he calmly turned his head to look to the left to find a tall and thin young man with a ponytail. After inspecting his details, Mark nodded and replied with a comment, "I didn't expect my name will reach even the Heaven sect. But then again, your sect is an ally to the Imperial family. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise." The guy didn't know how to respond to Mark's unusual comment, as he wasn't sure whether the latter was commenting in a sarcastic way or speaking casually. In the end, he ignored Mark's comment and said in a polite tone, "Indeed, it is owner Lu. I'm sorry, but I was just surprised to see you here. I heard that you are already at the peak stage of Exalt Realm." Exalt Realm? Exalt Realm? What is he saying? Did this fellow break the rules somehow and enter the competition? How did he evade the senses of a legendary realm expert? Did he use some mystical artifact? The whispers circulated all over the place as soon as Yi Kang blurted out those words. Mark furrowed his brows and responded sharply this time. "Just because I can kill the Cerberus doesn't mean that I'm in Exalt Realm, Mr. Yi. Don't speak of bullshit if you weren't aware of actual facts." Yi Kang was startled at first, but then, as he realized what his words signify, he quickly apologized for his mistake and ran away from there, leaving the listeners filled with curiousness. And no one knows who started to spread the rumors, probably the participants from the Phoenix Empire or some elder from the Xianshu sect. Mark's deeds mixed with a few lies spread around like wildfire. Killing a seven-circle realm beast king, killing legendary realm experts on his wedding engagement day, earning tens of millions of gold coins in an auction, forcefully snatching the daughter of his enemy, obtaining the fire seed, the one behind the deaths of the Iron Palm sect's elders, destroying the major noble clans over a simple feud, best friend of the second prince, abducting a noble clan's heir for money, was in cahoots with a mysterious organization from another world that tries to take over this world using firearms. An ample of rumors spread among the disciples of the sect and participants alike by the end of the day. No one knows the authenticity of the news, and everyone is afraid of asking him because of Lan Ju and the Manticore. However, most of the participants did have one question in their minds. Did they have the ability to defeat him in battle? The 5-circle and 4-circle realm warriors weren't confident. Only the 6-circle realm experts wanted to battle him. Of them, there were a few who were even dying to face him, although mostly because of the rumors. Evening at around 8 o'clock, Scarlet Peak. Outside of the lodging area, several sect disciples and participants gathered around a bonfire, separated into small groups, and were having discussions, majorly about the tournament beauties, their respective kingdom affairs, etc. Sui Weisheng was one of the people who was discussing the tournament, and the people in his group couldn't stop talking about Mark of all the people, making the former quite uncomfortable. "Senior, I can't believe you fought him and escaped alive. I mean, he is someone who had killed a legendary realm expert, right?" A young man exclaimed in surprise after listening to Sui Weisheng's exaggerated story of how he valiantly fought against Mark and his attack helicopter. Not intending to listen to any praise from Mark, Sui Weisheng replied, "It's just a rumor, junior brother Qi. Lu Zhen wasn't strong as the rumor suggested. He only knows to depend on those weird puppets and weapons. Even in today's match, he depended on that weapon. Take them away from him and he is nothing worth discussing. But still, that weapon is scary. In one move, it killed a 5-circle realm spirit warrior." The 4-circle mage shuddered, imagining himself in such a scenario. In response, Sui Weisheng let out a snort. "It's not a big deal. I have already gauged its power. It cannot harm an opponent who is in 6th circle, and Lu Zhen himself isn't immune to its damage if the explosion occurs around him. So, as long as we keep a close distance, the weapon is useless." "Yeah, Senior is almost at the Exalt realm. If he meets Lu Zhen in battle, that guy will not have a good ending," another young man commented, supporting Sui Weisheng. Sui Weisheng pleasantly smiled on the surface. However, he had different thoughts in his mind. He was actually praying that he won't meet the guy in the field. The Sui clan is not doing great right now. So if they meet in the arena and he fails to control his temper and kills him, then the Sui clan will face repercussions. After all, in his opinion, Mark was no longer the same weapon seller they met months ago. Now Mark had the backing of the second prince, the 5th princess, to some extent, even the emperor. Adding on top of that, a supreme being was serving him. So now, it is really not the best time to take his revenge. And as the next clan head, Sui Weisheng wanted to help his clan and not send it to its doom. Man, who could have expected that Lu Zhen would crash into this tournament of all the places? He inwardly sighed and stared at the stars. Meanwhile at White Peak, while the rest of the participants indulged themselves in some form of entertainment, the 15-year-old Zai Mei was practicing her archery in darkness. A target in the form of a human was more than 200 meters away, and there were only fire lamps placed around it for visibility. And yet, every arrow struck the target in whatever places she aimed. After striking it with the 30th arrow in a row, the image of a person came to her mind and she mumbled under her breath, "There's something off about that fellow named Lu Zhen. For some reason, I couldn't just keep him away from my head." Chapter 367.4 Dragon Warrior Tournament, Part 4. The next day, the winner is Dai Q of the Kunlun sect. The winner is Zai Mei of Xianchu sect. The winner is Sui Weisheng of MT, Hua sect. The winner is Lu Wan of Star sect. The winner is Meng Tao of the 5 Lakes sect. The winner is Zai Ling of the Kunlun sect. The winner is Yu Hao of the Iron Palm sect. The winner is Xian Li of Blue Lotus sect. The winner is Wang Teng of the Wuji sect. The winner is Ai Qing of the Wuji sect. After more than 26 matches, Mark finally got his turn around noon, and he went onto the stage. Just like in the first round, his opponent was once again a 5-circle realm spirit warrior. But Gu Li wasn't considered a good matchup, well, according to others. Yanmen sect is one of the major sects in the Kun Empire, which is also known as the breeding ground of assassins. The sect only takes in those who have the talent to be an assassin. Mark's opponent is an assassin who mastered the art of stealth. As soon as the battle began, Gu Li activated his skill and disappeared from everyone's vision. Not even tournament favorites like Sui Weisheng or Zai Mei could sense his presence. For one moment, it looked as if he teleported away. People thought Mark ran into some trouble, but little did they know that he never had any plans of fighting fairly. As soon as his opponent went into stealth mode, he contacted Lan Ju using their telepathic connection and directly asked for Gu Li's position. After getting what he needed, Mark once again used the same tactic he used in the earlier round. The smoke grenade released thick smoke into the surroundings and blocked the vision of the assassin, forcing him to move away from his current spot. However, as Mark already knows his position, he blindly charged forward in that direction and shot the warhead from his rocket launcher upon getting into 30-meter range. Boom! The explosion returned for the second time, with the first one used by Meng Tao against his opponent. Since the opponent isn't an enemy, he wasn't hit directly, and due to his fast reflexes, despite getting caught in the blast radius, Gu Li wasn't as heavily injured as one would expect it to be. There are second-degree burns here and there over his body. However, that doesn't mean he is in the game. According to the tournament rules, the moment his feet touch the ground, he loses. When the warhead detonated, he was already near the edge of the battle platform. The blast threw him away out of the ring. The winner is Lu Zhen of the Kunlun sect. The smoke cleared, and the proctor declared the end of the battle, with Mark winning the battle without putting much effort once again. Upon coolly finishing the match, Mark turned around to walk toward the participant stands, but it appeared that assassin Gu Li doesn't intend to leave the arena just yet. Raising his head and looking toward the VIP section, he spoke loudly. "I asked the judges if you were willing to allow such heretic methods. What's the point of a tournament if there are cultivation techniques that aren't even involved in the first place?" Mark halted his footsteps and turned around to spare a look at his defeated opponent. He furrowed his brows. The others also looked at the assassin, and then at Zai Zhang, with the majority agreeing with his argument. The others, mostly belonged to Sixth Circle, felt like it is just a loser's babble. Meanwhile, Gu Li continued. Every participant here belonged to sects and came here from all over the continent. It's already unfair to allow a person from the material world into this competition, specifically made for the cultivators belonging to the sects. And on top of that, heretic unknown type of weapon was permitted to use in this competition. I refuse to accept this result. Humph, ignorant fool. Mark let out a snort in response to his opponent's outburst before Zai Zhang or his grand elders replied to him. Feeling that an opportunity to promote his firearms knocked on his door, Mark took this chance and bothered himself to speak to his insignificant opponent. "My firearms are officially treated as a new type of weapon in Phoenix Empire, Western Moon Kingdom, and also Eastern Sun Kingdom. Even your Kun Empire's royal family purchased 500 units of my battle tanks. That means, apart from Lian Empire, almost this whole continent acknowledges the so-called heretic unknown weapons. I said this many times to a lot of people, and I will say the same to you. The future belongs to firearms. Whether one wants to take the risky new path and rule the future world or stay on the same old path for a stable, but mediocre future depends on one decision. Don't try to paint it as evil just because your path is different and weak. If it is stronger than my path, then you wouldn't have ended up as a loser." After thoroughly scolding his opponent, Mark didn't bother to hear his reply and started returning to his seat. Meanwhile, silence filled the whole arena for a moment before murmuring spread around. The reactions were quite mixed, or one should say, he made several enemies with his earlier comments. The future belongs to firearms. Our path is weak. What bullshit is he spouting? That guy is challenging everyone. Humph, let's see how long he will stay arrogant. Firearms were recognized in so many places. Ugh, I feel like I have lived like a frog in well. I wonder what those so-called battle tanks purchased by the imperial family. What a braggart. He will stop boasting after facing the stronger ones. I wonder whether I should try these firearms. They appeared quite strong from so far. Damn, he makes me angry, but I can't do anything. A completely new path, huh? I feel like the world is about to change in the near future. Once all the 32 battles were over, a 30-minute break was announced by the proctor before round 32 started. Perhaps Mark's statement displeased even the elders of the sect too, or maybe it increased their curiosity. By great coincidence, he was matched up against Meng Tao, who also used the same type of weapon. So the round 32 battle between Mark and Meng Tao is like the showdown between firearms. Of course, that doesn't mean that spectators were curious about the result. Mark was clearly the favorite here. After all, Meng Tao is only at the peak stage of the four-circle realm. The moment he gets caught up in the explosion, he would die for sure unless he had a defensive treasure. Upon their names being called, both of them stepped onto the battle platform. Each of them was given 1 minute of preparation, and Meng Tao readily took out the rocket launcher, which was already loaded with the warhead in its barrel. But surprisingly, Mark didn't take out the same weapon and instead takes out a different one, surprising everyone including his opponent. Before the proctor announced the start of the battle, he waved his hand with a smile. It's been a while, Pan Tao. Or should I call you Meng Tao instead? Meng Tao was startled for a second before he politely replied, I'm honored that you remembered someone insignificant like me, Lord Lu. Mark stared directly at his face for a few seconds and shook his head. Forget it. Nothing good comes out of it if I reveal your secret here. I won't even question how you acquire the weapon and its ammunition. However, I expect you to meet me in private later in the evening. I need some answers from that chimera of yours. Meng Tao was once again startled and took a step back with his secret being found out by his opponent. He then heard the voice of Killen in his head. It is not surprising, considering the fact that he is a heaven-defying being. I don't sense any hostility from him either. So just calm down your nerves and focus on the battle. Taking a deep breath, Meng Tao threw away all of those unnecessary thoughts and concentrated on Mark. As for the weapon seller, he went on taking out a 4-foot stand and mounting the M134 minigun. Pointing the gold-grade ether weapon at him, Mark spoke. All right, let's make a deal, Meng Tao. If I win, you will just have to honestly answer 3 questions of mine. If you manage to stay on the field for more than a minute, I will accept my loss and withdraw from the tournament. What do you say? Chapter 368.5 Dragon Warrior Tournament, Part 5. For a while, Meng Tao didn't speak anything and consulted the Killen's spirit for advice. The Killen slightly hesitated at first, but then it thought that there isn't much to lose in answering some questions and agreed to the deal, which was heavily leaning on its host's side. After the wager was finalized between the two of them, they waited for the signal. Soon the waiting time is over, and the proctor blew the whistle. Meng Tao clicked the trigger to shoot the warhead at his opponent, and leaped in a backward direction to increase the distance as soon as the match started. Mark quickly raised the elevated angle of the machine gun and shot 100 rounds of ether bullets in just a fraction of a second. As soon as a bunch of bullets simultaneously struck the incoming warhead, it triggered detonation. A large explosion occurred in midair, taking Meng Tao by surprise and throwing him off his balance. He crashed onto the floor. Boy, I'm taking over you. A voice was then heard in Meng Tao's head, and he lost consciousness with Killen possessing him. A translucent aura erupted from the young adult as he made a quick backflip and stared at Mark, who quietly watched him. Meanwhile, the silhouette of a chimera appeared behind his back. What the? The Grand Elders rose to their feet in surprise as they witnessed the possession. Zai Zhang spoke out with widened eyes. An aura warrior. Aura warrior. Song Yue and her father looked at the old man for an answer. Noticing their stares, Zai Zhang explained. Aura warriors are those who were born with the aura of a spirit beast emperor when they were born. Usually, The chance of this occurrence in spirit warriors is as low as 1 out of 10,000. One of the Grand Elders then commented, "Fortunately, Mr. Lu is in the sixth circle realm. He will be okay, I guess." "Oh, is that so?" Lan Ju and Yang Bingwen reacted at the same time, using a sarcastic tone. Eh? As the remaining two Grand Elders slightly frowned at their reaction, especially from their own comrade, Song Yue let out a beautiful smile as she pointed at the field. "My husband is a lot stronger than you possibly imagine." Zai Zhang glanced at her from the corner of his eyes, wondering whether she is being confident or just trying to boast in the heat of the moment. But in the next second, his facial expression changed. Even Qilin in Meng Tao's body sweated involuntarily as its eyes fell on the lightning clone that appeared beside Mark. "Throw him out," Mark passed the order. And in just a fraction of a second, Meng Tao's collar was grabbed by the clone, and he crashed onto the ground with just a casual throw. The lightning clone disappeared quickly after its job is done, but Meng Tao didn't get up and left for a while. Continuing to lie on the ground, the Qilin stared into the sky with a dazed expression and thought, "What in the hell was that? It's fuking faster than I would ever be in my prime. That Lu Zhen could only be a friend, not a foe. Forget about 3, I will answer 30 if I have to." Meanwhile, the murmurings once again flew around. What was that skill? 1 second it was there beside Lu Zhen, and in the next second the match is over. That's a fucking attribute clone skill, the long-lost ancient technique. Was he of lightning attribute? Hey, did it teleport? Kaya, Master Lu is just too strong and too handsome. Humph, he is nothing compared to the fourth prince. Nah, Master Lu is more handsome. He is already married. On the other hand, the fourth prince is still single. Not to mention, he has a stronger background. Say, senior brother, can we recruit that Meng Tao? He appeared to be talented. Of course, he is an aura warrior, junior sister. Do you think his sect would allow him to leave? Only top-tier sects might have the chance to snatch him. I wonder what that weapon used by Lu Zhen. It appeared to be some sort of ether weapon in contrast to Meng Tao's. Its firing speed was awesome. I didn't know that owner Lu possessed this type of ether weapon. Yeah, in the auction, he only sold a copper-grade ether weapon. This one appeared to be at least in silver grade. Forget about the handsome guy for a second. The other fellow earlier, there was some strange power erupted from him, right? Yeah, I too saw it. The round 32 battles ended around 3:40 in the afternoon, and Patriarch Zai called for the day. Holding up the end of his deal, Meng Tao quietly followed Mark as the latter climbed down the mountain, while the rest of his companions apart from the Manticore returned to the residence allotted to Mark, and everyone on the White Peak. For nearly 30 minutes, neither of them spoke anything. Maybe it is because he is too nervous, or maybe it is because of the presence of a legendary realm beast king. Meng Tao showed a great deal of patience as he waited for Mark to open up on the matter. Once Mark found a remote location on the mountain, he stopped walking and asked without looking at the 19-year-old, "Earlier, you were possessed by Qilin. Can you talk to its spirit?" Yes, Meng Tao admitted it. Then, ask the Qilin whether it is the same creature that caused the destruction of Land Sect. Mark put forth his first question. Meng Tao went into silence for a while before he slowly opened his mouth. Yes. I see, Mark calmly nodded and then asked his second question. Ask who trapped it in the dungeon, which led to a dungeon break. Taking a deep breath and controlling his emotions, Meng Tao answered after half a minute. He said that the one behind its capture and the dungeon break is someone named Lan Su, an Immortal Realm dungeon creator, 11th Circle. Lan Su? Mark furrowed his brows. He didn't know who it was, but seeing his surname, he almost could confirm that it should be some grand elder from the ancient Lan sect, and is related to his late grandfather, Lan Jiangxin. Well, it will become clear once I talk to Lan Jiang later. Mark emptied his mind once again to clear off unnecessary thoughts as he finally turned around to look at the 19-year-old. My final question is for you, Meng Tao. If I offer you the needed backing and an endless supply of free ammunition along with different types of firearms and vehicles, will you become my subordinate and swear your loyalty to me? Ming Tao took a step back in shock. Why? That's not an answer, Mr. Meng, replied Mark, expecting a direct answer. For the next few seconds, Meng Tao's head hurt like hell as the Qilin was screaming at him. What are you hesitating, kid? Accept his offer. Pledge your loyalty to him. You won't get such another opportunity to achieve greatness in a shortcut. Do it. Don't think and follow my advice. Arg's all right, don't yell. The next day, after round 16, the battles for the 9th and 10th rankings were held among the losers of round 16. Mark continued his winning streak and made it quarterfinals. He was termed to be lucky, according to the majority of the spectators, for not facing a 6th-circle realm spirit warrior as an opponent so far. Of course, it goes without saying that the popularity of Mark and his firearms began increasing exponentially. And not everyone is happy with that. Some people were dissatisfied with the matchups and complained that the Xianchu sect is not being impartial. However, as the Grand Elders firmly said that the matchups were completely random from round 32, the haters couldn't do anything but hope that he will face humiliation in the quarterfinals where all of the participants were in the 6th-circle realm. It was the final day of the tournament, and VIP guests started arriving one after another. Earlier, the VIP section was only filled with the elders, the Grand Elders, the Patriarch of the Xianchu sect, and Mark's companions. But right now, it was filled with more than 30 VIP guests. There were respective Grand Elders of the sects that made it to the final day, including the Patriarch of the Wuji sect. There were wealthy individuals. There were some powerful nobles from the empire, along with their emperor and 3 princes, eldest, 4th, and 7th. Then there were a couple of representatives from the organizers, the ever-powerful Void Temple. And lastly, one cannot forget Lan Ju and others who were sitting there for the past couple of days. Because of Lan Ju's strength as a supreme being and the fact that he has defeated Zai Zhang with ease, he and the others naturally received a warm reception from the other guests too, well, except for one. Chapter 369, Dragon Warrior Tournament Quarterfinals. The Patriarch of the Wuji sect is an advanced stage Supreme Realm expert, and his strength was no less than a supreme being, well, at least in his opinion. He neither fears the Xianchu sect, nor did he care about the authority of Emperor Qin Mo. This was why he didn't bother to hide his animosity against Lan Ju and his companions. As for the reason, well, it can be guessed by anyone who watched Mark's battles. In his very first match itself, Mark killed a talented individual from the Wuji sect while representing the Kunlun sect. Throughout the tournament, he also showed his overbearing attitude with everyone from participants to the elders of the sect. Obviously, he would want to take revenge. But he cannot act on his own as Mark also had a supreme being as backing, and it's not worth offending such a figure over a disciple who didn't have any personal relationship with him. Hence, he can only hope for Mark's death within the competition itself. Unfortunately for him, such a day never comes forth. As the 8 participants were waiting in their allotted section, the proctor greeted the emperor and went on to announce the start of the quarterfinals. Ai Qing from the Wuji sect wins the battle and proceeds to the semi-finals. Sui Weisheng from MT, Hua sect wins the battle and proceeds to the semi-finals. Zai Mei from the Xianchu sect wins the battle and proceeds to the semi-finals. Now, for the 4th and final quarterfinal, Lu Zhen from Kunlun sect versus Ye from Xianchu sect. The cheers erupted in the arena with most of the spectators rooting for Mark's opponent. In fact, it was quite overwhelming. Lu Zhen, ya. Of course, it is not because they hate Mark or something. It's just that more than 2/3 of the spectators belong to the Xianchu sect, and being a beauty in her 20s only made her more popular among the male disciples. The result could be seen from the wild cheers. However, for Mark, she's nothing more than a walking piece of flesh, whose only use is to contribute to the promotion of firearms. As both of them got onto the battle platform, and Mark took out the rocket launcher, Yaya took the initiative to converse with Mark. You do know that thing is useless against me, right? She pointed her finger at the rocket launcher. Forgetting the fact that the explosion's power won't be enough, I'm also a water light attribute user. Mark replied with a smile. Then, I guess it will be quite humiliating for you to lose this battle if I use nothing but this weapon. Yaya was irked by his provocative words. She was motivated to wipe off the smile from her opponent. Hence, the moment the whistle was blown, she unleashed a powerful skill, starting the battle with a big move. As the water dragon was slowly being formed above her head, Mark didn't wait until it was finished and attacked her right away. However, Yaya didn't move from the spot and just let out a smirk as the warhead detonated at her feet and exploded. Due to the barrier placed by the proctor to protect the battle platform, no damage was done to the flooring. As for Yaya, a couple of bruises appeared on a few places like her hands, cheeks, and legs, but neither there was heavy damage inflicted on her nor did her legs move from their spot. Told you? Yaya's smile widened, and she then put her entire focus on the skill now that her theory became true. The haters of Mark and the fans of Yaya gloated at the first setback faced by Mark. So far, he never reloaded the rocket launcher with a second warhead. Just when the spectators were about to feel like Mark's winning streak is over, he surprised everyone by raising his free left arm and pointing his index finger at her. He wasn't exactly pointing at her, but was clicking on the skill displayed on the invisible holographic screen. I wonder if it works. Let's try and see for myself. With the system being offline, no notification was received by Mark, but he could sense all of his ether energy vanished in an instant before the entire battle platform froze in ice, including the opponent and her water dragon. Yep, it worked. Mark let out a pleasant smile. In the past, he experienced situations where he used the skills with fewer ether points than required. The result was the skill being unleashed with less power. Back then the system was online, but now it isn't. That is why Mark wasn't sure until he tested it directly in the battle. Luckily for him, it worked perfectly and didn't force him to opt for a different route. An ice attribute, I thought he was a lightning attribute user. A dual attribute user. Look at that, his skill could even freeze the water dragon. Wow. It looks like we have underestimated him a lot. Fuck, that's a bloodline skill. A bloodline skill. Only people born with a bloodline like me could sense it. I'm sure that it is a bloodline skill. This guy more trouble than I thought. Kaya Master Lu is amazing as always. That bastard, how dare he freeze our goddess? Will he now start firing those exploding objects from that weapon? Poor Yaya. Hey, what he is doing? Amid the gazes of the spectators, Mark put away the rocket launcher and started walking toward the opponent. Yaya could see him, but she cannot move. Adding on top of that, she was experiencing extreme cold at the moment. She felt like she was going to freeze to death. She tried her best to deploy the ether energy to create a barrier around her skin and protect herself from the cold. At the same time, she was also looking for a way to break from this paralysis state. Meanwhile, Mark reached her and then took out a piece of a white-colored box from his storage ring. He placed it at her feet. He took out the second one and put it on the side. Then, he took out two more explosives and made sure that she was surrounded by them. After placing them, Mark didn't even spare a glance at her and walked back to the original position. Taking his time to attack, he turned his head toward the VIP box. His eyes were fixed on the person who was sitting beside Zai Zhang. Emperor Qin Mo furrowed his brows as he stared at him, almost guessing what the weapon seller is going to do next. Ahem. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lu Zhen, and I'm from the Phoenix Empire. Mark started introducing himself to the potential clients around him before publicizing the firearms. I'm sure most of you might not have heard of firearms, so let me introduce a model that we are selling at the moment. Pointing at Yaya, he continued, the boxes you see are called C4. This is an advanced version of the explosive and each one costs over 700 gold coins. As for the blast strength, you can say they were in the 5-circle realm. Our Yaya is a 6-circle realm expert and is even a water and light attribute user. Let's see how these explosives fare against her. What are you doing? A dignified yet loud voice escaped from the emperor before the Xianchu sect's patriarch reacted to it. Continuing to look in Qin Mo's direction, Mark replied, "Everyone has their own battle strategy, Emperor Qin. I have my own way to defeat my opponent. As the chief judge, please be neutral and don't interrupt our battle just because you found my methods strange." He then glanced at the displeased old man sitting beside Qin Mo and added a statement, "And don't worry, she won't die." The spectators were taken aback by how Mark dared to speak in such a tone with the ruler of the Kun Empire in public. The haters increased in number. Mark could care less about others and just do his own thing. Taking out the pocket watch, he spoke, "The explosives will be active in about 235 seconds. Let's wait and see whether she can escape it." For the next 4 minutes, the entire arena was silent. As Mark continued to stare at the pocket watch, the spectators were watching in anticipation. Will you escape before the time? Were the explosives really strong enough to defeat her if they blast at the same time? Why is Patriarch Zai not doing anything? Why did it feel like they were sitting on execution grounds? The spectators went through several thoughts as they watched Yi in silence. Many of their heartbeats were also spiked in tension. And then finally, Mark opened his mouth again. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. When he was on 2, all the ice on the platform disappeared, unfreezing Yi. She lost her strength and immediately collapsed on the floor while shivering in fear. But Mark wasn't in the mood to pity her, as the time is almost up. 1. He spoke the number 1, and then, in the next second, all 4 C4 explosives detonated at the same time. Boom, 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 boom. The sounds of the explosions caused tremors in the hearts of spectators, while Yi blasted away with second and degree burns on her body. She fell to the ground, and the prepared healers quickly rushed forward to heal her, before covering her with a cloth to protect her dignity. Hundreds of eyes were fixed on Mark, and many of their faces were filled with bewilderment. They truly felt like they underestimated Mark and his firearms. Letting out a smile, Mark then spoke in a loud tone, "Well, the result is here." A psycho. Several of them got the same thought in their head as he calmly walked away with a smile. Chapter 370. Bettings between the VIP guests. By noon, rankings from 5th to 8th were decided, while the semi-finalists took a rest. When the sun is at its peak position, the semi-final battles were announced. The first battle is between the respective winners of quarterfinals 1 and 2, i.e. Sui Weisheng and AI Qing. It was an intense battle between close combat and ranged combat that lasted for a whole hour, keeping the audience standing on their toes until it was over. In the end, Sui Weisheng managed to acquire the win with a bloodied body, while an equally injured AI Qing went unconscious. Both of them received grand applause from the VIP guests. Some of them were praising Sui Weisheng, while some of them were praising AI Qing for showing a tough spirit and never giving up attitude even while losing. But then again, not everyone would shower their praises on the participants. Some criticized that they dragged the battle for a very long time, while some commented that Sui Weisheng purposely went easy on AI Qing, further criticizing him for being a fool to chase after skirts. All of this has no importance for a few people, like for example Lan Ju and his companions. Their attention was only on the guy they were supporting. There were also some who were waiting to see the skills of the so-called heavenly child, Zai Mei. Soon, the proctor announced the start of the next battle. Next up, Lu Zhen of the Kunlun sect versus Zai Mei of the Xianchu sect. As Mark and his opponent proceed to the battle platform, someone decided to make things interesting at the VIP section. "Venerable Zai, I wonder whether you are interested to make a bet with me," said the Grand Elder of Poison Sect. Their sect's representative lost in the quarterfinals, but he doesn't want to miss any opportunity to make things difficult for their rival sect. Keeping his hope on Mark, he continued to speak with his wager. "How about 1,000 high-quality ether crystals for starters? My money is on Lu Zhen. What do you say?" Zai Zhang furrowed his brows in response. What do you think you are doing, Brother Wan? Wan Shui then tried to provoke him. Why? Are you scared that your granddaughter will lose? Humph, who do you think you are, talking to our patriarch like that? Lion Qin, one of the grand elders of the Xianshu sect, came in support of Zai Zhang. Wan Shui then sharply stared at him. If you aren't confident in your representative, then say so. No need to spout nonsense, Lion Qin. I'll bet with you, Brother Wan. The third grand elder took this opportunity to impress Xianshu. Isn't it just 1,000 crystals? I'll pay you from my pocket. It is not appropriate for the hosting sect to be involved in gambling. Ho, now this looks interesting, commented the Grand Elder of the Blue Lotus sect. As her representative lost against Mark, she had a light grudge against Lan Ju. Taking a glance at him, she said while taking out a pendant from her storage ring, I wonder whether anyone is interested in having a bet with me too. I would like to put a semi-divine artifact as a wager. I won this in last year's grand auction. It increases one's comprehension and makes it easier when mastering techniques. Her words drew the attention of every guest in the VIP box, especially those from the sects. Based on the description, this artifact is extremely valuable for their disciples. Even Zai Zhang couldn't help but look at her in surprise. However, it was the fourth prince who acted before anyone else. Senior, if you don't mind, I would like to bet with you. Your Highness. Everyone's attention shifted to him, including his father's. More than the fact that the imperial prince is willing to join the fun, they were surprised to see that he is supporting Mark. So the imperial family indeed has friendly relations with Lu Zhen. A lot of people had this thought in their mind as Qin Zhai took out an exquisite-looking saber. After taking permission from the emperor, the fourth prince put forth the saber in the bet. Not sure whether you think this can be considered in the same level as the pendant, but I want to say that this saber is a high-level semi-divine weapon, forged from the bones of a pure red dragon. Oh, Your Highness, you are quite generous indeed. The woman from the Blue Lotus sect let out a giggle as she praised the prince. Meanwhile, the crown prince's expression turned worse. The last thing he wanted is for his brother to get into good books of the weapon seller. Mark promised him the throne, but that promise might be broken if he develops a friendship with Qin Zhai. As if the heavens are helping him, just when the deal between his brother and the lady from the Blue Lotus sect is finished, the emperor joined in the conversation too. However, his attention was on the middle-aged-looking fellow who defeated Zai Zhang in front of everyone. Mr. Wu, what do you think of this battle? Naturally, his words would attract the attention of everyone nearby, for he is the ruler of the Kun Empire. As they looked at Lan Ju for his response, the latter glanced at the emperor from the corner of his eyes and replied in a firm tone, I will say the same thing I said to Mr. Zai a while ago. The outcome of his battle always depends on his wishes, not the opponent's. But if you want me to speak directly, the little girl's strength is no match for my master. If these words were spouted by someone else, the listeners wouldn't have taken them seriously. However, the one who spoke is a supreme being, probably the strongest guy in the VIP box. Hence, their curiosity toward Mark only increased further. Of course, there ought to be someone who might get riled up by his words too, and it was the patriarch of the Wuji sect. His representative just lost the battle, and if Zai Mei wins the battle, then Mark will be facing Ai Qing. It would be the perfect timing for revenge. Or so, he thought as he spoke. I would bet a 50,000 carat-sized ether ore of high quality that Lu Zhen will lose. If you are so confident in your master, do you dare bet with me? Lan Ju didn't even bother to take a glance at him and scolded him. Are you dumb? Just watch the battle. You will understand what I meant. Wuji sect's patriarch clenched his fist in anger, almost losing control. He was, after all, an advanced stage Supreme Realm cultivator. How could he be brushed off like this? But since he also has the dignity to keep, he kept his composure and calmly commented that he'll see whether Lan Ju's words are just bragging without any weight behind them or not. Lan Ju didn't bother to speak again and put his attention on the battle platform, as both of the semi-finals reached their spots. Phew, this was a bit nerve-wracking. Zai Zhang felt at ease, seeing that the matter didn't erupt between these Supreme Realm experts. After all, both of them were respectable figures. Unfortunately for the Patriarch of Xianchu sect, the trouble is far from over. Chapter 371, Dragon Warrior Tournament Semifinals 1. As the two semi-finalists came onto the battle platform, and the proctor informed each of them to make their battle preparations for the next 2 minutes, Mark took this opportunity to rile her up. "Missy, you cannot defeat me." He started the conversation with a bold statement. Zai Mei furrowed her brows in displeasure. Big words for someone who depends on external objects to win the battles. "Well, aren't you also depending on a bow to defeat your enemies?" Mark pointed her finger at the exquisite-looking bow in her hand. Made from the bones of a dragon-crocodile beast of the 9-circle realm and king grade. A high-quality bow with a solid 36% chance of invoking the aura of the beast. It is a good weapon, but pity that it won't suit you. Had she met him at some other place, she would have been shocked by how he knows the components of the bow. But the fact they met in the tournament made her assume that her opponent made his research. He rode along with Yang Bingwen and stayed at his residence as a guest, so it is highly possible that he learned it from the Grand Elder. So rather than how he knows about the bow, she focused on the latter part. "What do you mean that it doesn't suit me? This weapon was with me since I was 10. It's a heavy bow, takes too much of your time, and strains your muscles in long battles." Mark took out an M134 mini-gun from his storage ring and further said, "Using this weapon, you can attack the enemies 10 times in the time you shoot one arrow." "That thing," Zai Mei raised one of her eyebrows, "a gold-grade weapon." "Maybe it is due to the 9 points of intelligence." Mark immediately understood what she was trying to say just from those few words. She wants to say that gold-grade weapons can only be used up to 6th circle, as they can only store ether particles up to a maximum of 9 million. Being at the peak stage of the 6th circle, the 15-year-old has a high possibility of making a breakthrough within a few months anyway. So, what is the use of it? If you don't have something better, then don't bother. As if he accurately read what was on her mind, Mark shook his head with a smile. If a gold-grade weapon exists, then, naturally, semi-divine weapons also exist. "Whatever," Zai Mei shrugged her shoulders. "I don't trust you or your so-called firearms." Mark didn't feel dejected, and only felt happier by her rejection, for her animosity will only be helpful for him. He continued to converse with his opponent, trying to rile her up. "I forgot that you are still a little kid who hasn't seen the world yet and isn't knowledgeable enough to have foresight about the future. Powerful firearms should be handled by responsible people. I guess you aren't ready for it yet. It doesn't matter. After you get defeated here and then will be defeated by one of the firearms once again, you will realize how the bow is holding back your potential." "I'm not a kid," Zai Mei suddenly screamed in response. Perhaps that specific word of all the things was some sort of trigger to her that she erupted in anger as soon as she felt like his opponent was mocking her age. She didn't even bother to hear the rest of his explanation at all. Mark was slightly surprised by her outburst at first, but then he realized that he hit the nerve and taken advantage of it. "I think you are, physically and mentally." "I'll kill you." Zai Mei gritted her teeth. She lost control of herself, and the Grand Elders of the Xianchu sect started to get worried. Mark burst into laughter after seeing her plan is working very well. Deciding to strike the iron when it is hot, he executed the final part of his plan. "If you are a mature girl, you should deal with it like an adult. How about this? I won't move from this spot, and neither will I use any skills for 5 whole minutes. Heck, I won't even use ether energy. If you can defeat me within the time frame, then I will take back my words and apologize. But what if you cannot even win this match? Will you throw away the bow and devote yourself to firearms training?" That's... A look of hesitation appeared on Zai Mei's face. At the same time, one of the Grand Elders at the VIP box furrowed his brows in displeasure. "What the hell is Lu Zhen trying to do?" "I think he is trying to put mental pressure on the girl," commented the Crown Prince, taking this opportunity to shine. "You are wrong, eldest brother." The fourth prince had a different opinion on the matter. As the others looked at him, he explained his view. I think Lu Zhen is laying a trap, for he already knows the result is in his hands. If Zai Mei follows their wager, then it will become easier for him to recruit her, just like how he poached Meng Tao to his side. Even if it doesn't happen, the more Zai Mei uses those firearms in the future, the more the other sect disciples will follow the suit because of her influence. In the end, he will be the one to make a profit out of this. No way. As expected, for your highness, you can discover his strategy without any effort. This Lu Zhen is quite evil. Hey, Venerable Wu can hear you. Oops. Poor Zai Mei, she was too young to see through her opponent. Still, in the end, the match is decided by one's battle skills. I'm sure that Zai Mei would win. Lu Zhen knew that he cannot win against her, so he decided to use such mind tricks, but he won't be successful. As the murmurs and comments filled in the VIP box, Patriarch Zai looked at his granddaughter in concern. You cannot fall into the trap, Zai Mei, he muttered under his breath. Back to the battle arena, as the countdown was ticking, Zai Mei took out her bow and accepted his challenge, and then loudly declared that there is no way she would lose to the likes of him. Mark let out a satisfactory smile and nodded in response. Good luck, kiddo. I am not a kid. She stressed those words once again and firmly gripped the handle of her bow. Her glare was filled with hatred. Mark no longer paid attention to her and connected his consciousness to the storage ring. 20 seconds to go, the proctor informed both of them. Mark dismissed the weapon in his hand. Zai Mei raised her left eyebrow. 10 seconds to go. Mark took out a fist-sized box with a large red button on its top. Is that some kind of defensive treasure? Zai Mei wondered while pulling back the bow string. 5 seconds to go. Mark pressed the button. It expanded into some kind of cloth enveloping him. 3, 2, 1. By the time the proctor blew the whistle, the exoskeleton suit was equipped with its owner, taking Zai Mei by surprise. Looking at his opponent, Mark gestured with his index finger to come at him with all she got. Chapter 372, Dragon Warrior Tournament, Semifinals 2. 4.5 minutes later. Hella. Concentrated energy in the form of golden-colored lightning cut through the air and struck Mark, but didn't leave a scratch on his exosuit. The whole arena was silent, including everyone in the VIP box. They just couldn't believe their eyes. Just like what Mark prophesied at the beginning of the battle, he didn't move from the spot, and neither did he attack her. He didn't even use any ether energy to protect himself, but he was completely unharmed. On the other hand, Zai Mei appeared to be quite exhausted, as she used so many powerful skills that shook the hearts of the spectators against her opponent, only to find out that all of them were useless, and none of them could break the defense of the exo suit, which has 9 points of stats. One can say that she was actually attacking a Supreme Realm expert who has trained his body to the peak. It is why, even when she augmented her magical powers to peak 7 circle by using an artifact, she couldn't hurt her opponent. Taking heavy breaths, as Zai Mei stopped attacking and went into ether recovery mode, Mark smirked under the exosuit and spoke for the first time since the battle started. This is the power of modern weapon technology, Missy. They don't hamper your progress. Instead, they will open a new door for you. Whether it is the rocket launcher I used in the past round or the explosives I used in the quarterfinals, they were for the people who don't dare to look directly into the eyes of powerful spirit warriors. It was so that they have the means to protect themselves. If I sell such powerful weapons for the commoners, then, isn't it foolish to think that I don't have any firearms built specifically for the spirit warriors? I'll say it again, Zai Mei. You have the potential, for I have sensed the power of God sleeping inside you. You possessed a hidden attribute that the rest of the humans could never hope to achieve even if they become a demigod. Don't waste your potential on the bow. The gun will make you unleash your full potential. Anyways, you still have 10 seconds to attack me, so this might be your last chance to prove that my views are wrong. Mark was banking on his 9 points of charm, which let him smoothly talk with people and make others trust his words. Usually, He only used it on clients to make more sales, but at the moment, he was trying it on the teenager to see if it works against a half-celestial. As if his power of charm is working, Zai Mei lowered her bow and fell into deep thinking. Meanwhile, at the VIP box, everyone was just going crazy by what they have watched and heard so far. Just how powerful is that defensive armor? That weird-looking flexible armor, I want it. Elder Zan, see if we can buy it from Lu Zhen. Damn, Lu Zhen's weird artifacts were only getting stronger as the tournament passed. What will he pull out in the finals? Sui Weisheng is weaker than Zai Mei, whether it is in the mastery of the bow or the unique skills. There's no way he could win against someone who the girl cannot even scratch with her arrows. Why did such a troublesome fellow appear in this tournament? Elder Cow, how did your sect even manage to rope in a guy like this? What happens to Zai Mei now? Will it happen as the fourth prince envisioned? Hidden attribute, the power of gods. He is spouting nonsense once again, isn't he? Looks like it, master. Lu Zhen, this fellow is more dangerous and crafty than I thought, mumbled the emperor. The power of gods. My son also said the same thing back then. Is it really true? Thought Zai Zhang, the patriarch of the Xianshu sect. Amid the gazes and murmurings of the spectators, Zai Mei stood silent for more than 10 seconds and freed her grip on the handle while looking down at the floor. Thud. As the semi-divine bow fell on the floor, she raised her head. This time, there was no anger or sadness on her face. Instead, there was a determined look. She spoke in a loud tone. I will honor the agreement and pick up the firearms after the tournament is over. But for now, let's finish the battle. Leaving her bow on the ground, she poured all of the little ether energy she had into her fist and charged forward. Mark then raised his hand. Zai Mei was prepared to get beaten by his attack, but she wanted to punch his face just once before it happens. But before she even covered half of the distance, Mark spoke. I quit. Zai Mei lost her balance due to the shock and comically crashed onto the floor. Did he just say quit? What? Why? The spectators, including the majority of the ones in the VIP box, were dumbfounded and simultaneously stood up from their seats. You quit. The proctor also appeared to be flabbergasted. In response, Mark unequipped his exosuit and nodded with a smile before walking away. Yang Bingwen couldn't help but break out into laughter, gaining the attention of nearby guests. He then commented, it's just like Venerable Wu has told earlier. Everything just went as Lu Zhen wanted it to go. Hey, it is your sect's representative who lost the match. The others blankly stared at him while almost thinking the same thing. Meanwhile, the fourth prince was deeply thinking about something, and suddenly, his eyes widened as something clicked in his mind. His expression looked like he realized something truly important. I see. I now understand why he admitted defeat. From the start, his target is AI Qing. Since Sui Weisheng went to the finals, he had to lose this match. But he is someone who wanted to go everything his way. That's why he riled up Zai Mei, then trapped her to bet with him. He knows that Zai Mei cannot hurt him, so he put a certain time limit to destroy her willpower. Once his goal is achieved, he admitted the match. If I'm not wrong, AI Qing will die in the match for sure. After all, she betrayed the Kunlun sect and laid a trap for her companions, killing 3 of them including an elder. He was doing this for those 2 from the Kunlun sect. But why? What kind of deal did he make with those 2 that he was willing to risk deeply offending the Wuji sect? This Wu Weibao and that Chimera beast aren't just his trump cards. He had something more powerful backing. That might be why he doesn't care about anyone. Let's forget about those things I don't have an answer to. Let's see what kind of new toys he had in his arsenal. After accurately analyzing Mark's actions and words until now, the fourth prince of the Kun Empire formulated a plan in his mind. Soon, he executed it by passing a note and a storage ring to the Wuji sect's patriarch. Chapter 373, Dragon Warrior Tournament Battle for 3rd Position. Roughly about half an hour later, AI Qing was in the middle of chatting with Yang Zhenqiu. The latter was trying to help her by statting all the things he analyzed from Mark's battles so far. From the moment the semifinals are concluded, they were discussing how to beat him. With little more than 2 hours till their battle, they felt it is enough. No matter what kind of tricks we prepared, you had to keep your distance close to him. Only that way, you would have a chance to defeat him. I don't know, I'm still not confident even after all that. AI Ching let out a deep sigh, fearing that all of this battle analysis is useless in front of absolute strength. According to Yang Zhenqiao, she can win if she strikes his vital points above the chest, i.e. neck, where he believed that the armor will be at its weakest. Since neither of them had ever heard of a battle armor set that includes an item to specifically protect one's neck, Yang Zhenqiao put his hopes on an assumption that it is nothing but a cloth that is attached to the headgear and the torso armor. There was no other explanation that came to his mind. Seeing that his love interest is still not confident, Yang Zhenqiao decided to pull out his trump card. Here, he took a pair of golden bracers from his storage ring. These are healing bracers, not in a semi-divine category, but still the platinum ones will help you out. They constantly absorb natural energy from the surroundings and heal your injuries automatically. Really? You would give these to me? AI Ching was taken aback. She wasn't a dumb girl to think that this handsome fellow was gifting her because he is generous. However, they were too precious to ignore. Not to mention, Yang Zhenqiao is also perfect husband material in many ways. So for her, there was no reason to reject the presents. Yang Zhenqiao was even happier to see that she appreciates his help. Now that the battle strategies were finished, he wanted to have a casual chat with her. Say, AI Ching, do you have him? It was at that moment the door was suddenly opened, and an unexpected guest followed the Wuji sect's patriarch into the room, taking the both of them by surprise. Both of them quickly stood up on their feet and greeted them by cupping their fists and bowing. Soon, a number of instant one-time use skill scrolls, semi-divine grade armor set, a couple of semi-divine artifacts, one which even includes a flute that summons a random 7-circle 8-circle beast king to do the user's bidding. This, Your Highness, why? AI Ching was speechless as she stared at the items. She was overwhelmed by the presents given by the fourth prince. In response, the fourth prince let out a smile. Let's just say that I want you to try your best to defeat your opponent. If you accomplish the task, I will let you keep one of the artifacts and the remaining skill scrolls with you. AI Ching fell silent for a while, taking her time to digest the reality before her. On the other hand, Yang Zhenqiao's eyes were fixed on the gauntlets. With their handles stretching about a foot in length, he knew for sure that his golden bracers would come in the way, so they would have to be removed. Considering the fact that they were of lower grade, it makes sense for them to be replaced too. It's just that he just gave it to her as a present, and if she replaces it, he would understand it but still feel sad. But to his surprise, AI Ching took everything except for the gauntlets that can store her ether energy for later use. Even the fourth prince and her sect master were surprised. AI Ching, what were you doing? Lai Peng, the patriarch of the Wuji sect, wasn't pleased by her act of not accepting all the items generously lent by the fourth prince. In response, AI Ching showed the golden bracers and said, "This is given by someone special to me. I can't take it off when such an important match is coming up." Lai Peng frowned upon hearing her words, while Qin Zhai took a glance at Yang Zhenqiao and waved his hand. "All right, no worries. I hope that the remaining will be enough to finish off your opponent." "Believe me, they are more than enough, Your Highness." As AI Ching assured them of her win, the fourth prince nodded and bid goodbye before collecting the gauntlets and leaving the place. Her sect master also followed the suit. She then looked at the man standing beside her and asked him whether they should form a new battle strategy, one that involves the items given by Qin Zhai. Yan Zhenqiao came out of his daze and nodded with a smile. "All right." Little more than 75 minutes later. After taking a short nap, AI Ching woke up with a fresh mindset. Both of them then left the room. While parting their ways on the way, Yang Zhenqiao said to her, "Let's meet at the White Lake once this is over. I have something to say to you." As if she knows what it is about, AI Ching let out a beautiful smile. I can't wait to hear it. Now go and win. Yang Zhenqiu left for the stands while AI Qing left for the participants section, where the other three were already waiting. After a while, the proctor entered the field and announced the battle for third position. Mark calmly walked toward the battle platform. AI Qing appeared to be even more confident as she made her way. Unlike during the semifinals, Mark didn't speak a word and just waited for the whistle. AI Qing, on the other hand, was fully equipped with armor and artifacts. She tightly gripped her sword to launch an attack as soon as the proctor gives the signal to start. 60 seconds left, 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left, 5 seconds left, 3, 2, 1. Phui. The whistle was blown and AI Qing let out a battle roar, charging forward at her peak speed. At the VIP box, the guests saw Lan Ju raising his hand and unleashing a protective barrier around Song Yue, confusing them a little bit. However, soon, Emperor Qin's confusion is cleared as he saw Mark simply raise his index finger and point at the empty air. Gravity dome. All of a sudden, enormous pressure descended into the surroundings. AI Qing suddenly collapsed onto her knees midway before falling on her stomach. And it's not just her. Everyone in the 1 km surroundings except for Mark, Lan Ju, and Song Yue collapsed to the ground floor beneath them without even knowing what struck them. What the patriarch of the Wuji sect, the imperial princes and emperor of the Kun Empire, grand elders of several sects, and even the experts from Void Temple, everyone was stuck in their seats, not being able to raise their hand too. Amid the gazes of thousands of people, Mark then calmly started walking toward her with a smile on his face. It appeared so evil that AI Qing's eyes shook in fear. Upon reaching her, he took out a platinum-grade sword which belonged to Zai Ling and pointed its tip just an inch away from the back of her neck as he crouched down. It's not personal, AI Qing. This is purely business, so don't hold any grudge toward me in hell, okay? AI Qing was frozen in fear, and she couldn't even talk as she was already trying her best to raise her head. She felt like she is going to die for real. It was then the patriarch of the Wuji sect, Lai Peng, roared, "No, don't. We admit defeat." The proctor took this chance to announce the result, but Mark cut him off, speaking directly to Lai Peng. "Sorry, but my opponent here is still not unconscious. You can't make a decision for her." Without wasting any more time, he looked back at the woman lying on the floor and swung down the sword with all the strength he has. Adios, AI Qing. With no armor protecting her delicate neck and her ether energy also being suppressed in the process, the sword made a clean cut, separating her head from the body. "No, no." Two screams echoed in the stadium, one that belonged to her patriarch and the other belonging to Yang Zhenqiu, who loves her. Looking at Mark's actions, Qin Jai's entire body shivered for a moment, and his eyes widened as he mumbled, "This fellow is fearless and ruthless." Chapter 374, Leaving for the next destination, the Kunlun Mountains. As Mark deactivated the skill, the pressure was lifted from the surroundings, and the spectators started taking deep breaths after feeling helpless for 20 seconds straight. The lower realm cultivators were staring fearfully at Mark, while the higher realm cultivators were staring angrily, feeling humiliated. Lai Peng quickly rose to his feet and flew toward the battle platform. He landed beside the decapitated disciple of his sect and looked at Mark with reddened eyes. "You bastard, I'll kill you." "Humph, you should have expected this when you planted a spy in the Kunlun sect and dared to ambush them on the way, killing 3 of them in the process," calmly replied Mark. The Grand Elder of the Kunlun sect, who also came as a guest, couldn't help but clench his fist in anger. He wanted to go there and attack Lai Peng, but according to his sect master's orders, he cannot do that. He needs to escort the weapon seller, his companions, and other disciples back to the Kunlun sect, but he can only involve in the matters of Dong Fang and Zai Ling. That's why he kept quiet and watched what was about to transpire in the arena. Of course, there's also a thought that his help isn't needed here because the weapon seller already had a powerful bodyguard. As for the others, they too didn't involve because of Mark's earlier attack that affected even them. Most of those VIPs thought that it is better to stay neutral, not wanting to unnecessarily offend either the Wuji sect's patriarch, Lai Peng, or Wu Weibao, Lan Ju. However, not everyone would stay silent either. The Grand Elders and the Patriarch of the hosting sect made their way to the battle platform. Meanwhile, Emperor Qin was silent as he stared at Mark and him alone. No one knows what was going on in his mind at the moment. Back at the battle platform, as Mark calmly stared back at Lai Peng without any fear, the latter blew up in rage. Ether energy burst out of him and he recklessly charged forward. Unfortunately for him, Mark was already well prepared. Instead of releasing the skill once again this time, he simply took a glance at the VIP box, and in the next second, Lan Ju already disappeared from there. Before Lai Peng grabbed Mark's throat, Lan Ju appeared right in front of his master before catching the enemy's hand in a timely manner and swinging it away. Without being able to resist the force of demigod, Lai Peng blasted away and crashed out of the battle platform, stupefying the spectators once again. The other Supreme Realm experts landed nearby in the meantime. As Lai Peng rose to his feet and hatefully glared at Mark, the latter continued to display his calmness as he placed his hands behind his back. Consider this a warning. Try to attack again, and your aides will return to the Wuji sect with your dead body. Lai Peng clenched his fist and motioned it back. Ether energy started gathering in his fist. Today, neither you nor your friends will leave alive from this place. Just as he was about to launch a ranged skill, the patriarch of the Xianchu sect stopped him. Calm down, Brother Lai. This isn't the place to fight. He then turned his head to look at Mark with a look of displeasure. Mr. Lu, you have caused enough trouble already. Do you want more casualties to occur from the battle between two Supreme Realm experts? Why are you trying to rile him up? Mark's expression changed upon hearing those words. Zai Zhang's expression and words for both of them clearly indicated that he wasn't on Mark's side. Just until yesterday, this fellow was supporting Mark. Suddenly, he changed the party. Why? Well, it is not hard for Mark to imagine the reason. He forced Zai Zhang's granddaughter to abandon the bow. If she goes back on her word, her image will be destroyed considering she promised in front of hundreds of disciples of the sect. Since he didn't have any enmity with Zai Zhang, Mark didn't get into an argument with him and put his entire focus on his enemy. He then raised his voice so that people in the stands also hear him. I killed your disciple without breaking any rules, but you intended to commit murder in daylight. Why? I guess it is because I'm an upper elite realm cultivator while you are a supreme realm cultivator. With your high cultivation realm and the backing of the Wuji sect, perhaps, you thought that you could do anything you wanted in a fit of anger, and everyone would also turn a blind eye, right? Well, it doesn't matter either way. I'm not a person who begs others to give justice to me. I'm the type to snatch justice with my own hands. Raising 3 fingers, I'll give you 7 days of preparation. On the 8th day, I'll come to Wuji sect and settle our scores. Without caring about anyone's reaction, he turned around and started walking away. Lan Ju followed him from behind while the others at the VIP box and the general audience section, Dong Fang, Zai Ling, and Coachman Dai Qiu, also got up to leave as they were informed beforehand. Looking at Mark and Lan Ju, who were walking toward the exit of the arena, Lai Peng gritted his teeth. Both of you will not even leave the border of this empire. Roughly 3 hours later, the 2 bicorn carriages were seen traveling at a speed between 9100 km/h on a barren land surrounded by rocky hills. They were still far away from the border and even thousands of kilometers away from their next destination, but Mark didn't seem to be in a hurry. He was still confident about finishing his tour on time. Above those carriages, there was a giant albatross keeping up with their pace. This 7-circle beast king belonged to the Kunlun sect, although at the moment it was flying alone as the sect's grand elder was traveling with Zai Ling and Dong Fang. Lan Ju and Song Yun were with them, and Song Yun along with the Manticore found themselves in Mark and Song Yue's carriage. Originally, Mark wanted the manticore to fly alongside the albatross in order to keep an eye on the surroundings, but the beast was so lazy that it wanted to sleep instead. Since it isn't securing the surroundings isn't that important, he let it do what it wants and continued his journey. After another hour of traveling, the vehicle slowed down as the light in the surroundings started dimming. The sun is in a setting phase, and before it gets too dark, Mark decided to set up a tent and everything. The vehicles were parked on top of a rocky hill where there is enough flat ground for them to rest for the night. As for the lack of a water source in the surroundings, they could only depend on the circulation of their ether energy to remove impurities for now, which is a common thing among adventurers and cultivators. Giving the task to set up the two tents to the two coachmen, Mark sat nearby and talked with Song Yue about how there were only 10 days left before their return. Yeah, almost 3 weeks have gone just like that. Song Yue rested her head on his shoulder while grabbing his arm. It would be nice if we are able to leave in such peace forever. We will, my shats, replied Mark right away. After a brief pause, he further said, once my heart is at peace, we will have such peace. Song Yue then moved a bit closer and snuggled herself into his arms as she said, you know that I will always support you, Marky. Mark didn't say anything, but just let out a pleasant smile as he continued to hold her. They stayed in that position for a few minutes as they chatted about normal things. The rest also didn't bother the lovebirds and continued with their own business until the peacefully lying albatross suddenly let out a high nasal bray with its attention fixed on the sky. As everyone paid attention to the giant beast, the manticore also suddenly woke from its sleep and stared at the horizon. It spoke, a powerful enemy is approaching. The albatross nodded like a human and exclaimed as it spoke in human speech, a super powerful enemy. Everyone's expression changed. Even Mark and Song Yue stood on their feet in seriousness. It was then Lan Ju, who was sitting on a nearby rock, scolded the both of them. Ah, shut it the both of you. It's just a baby griffin and its owner who probably decided to stop following and meet us. Everyone turned their head to look at Lan Ju. Chapter 375, Picking Up Another Girl. Sometime later, the griffin landed near the campsite, and everyone saw a familiar figure jumping onto the ground and walking toward them. Ms. Zai, what are you doing here? Asked the Kunlun sect's Grand Elder in a bit of surprise. He couldn't help but take a glance at the griffin walking behind her. Any message from Brother Zai? No. Zai Mei shook her head with a smile as she shifted her attention toward Mark and said, I left my sect and decided to follow my husband. Dear husband, you will take responsibility for shattering my pride and my life as an archer. Everyone. For a while, the entire surroundings became silent as everyone stared at the 15-year-old in disbelief. Even Mark was also taken aback by her bold confession, while Song Yue felt that she is crazy. Because of her high potential, Mark wanted to recruit her. To do that, he cleverly forced her to abandon the bow. Little did he expect this teenager would want to marry him instead. If this is how she wants to play, then he would rather not recruit her at all. Trying his best to not get angry with her, Mark spoke in a calm tone. Girl, first of all, you are too young to even speak of marriage. Secondly, I already love someone else. Thirdly, I'm not responsible for anything. You were the one who lost the bet. It's your choice to follow the terms of the bet or not. And finally, I'm not your husband, so please refrain from addressing it as such. Mark's reply made Zai Mei unhappy, but the teenage girl didn't plan on backing it out. Pointing her finger at him, she made a declaration. I already made my decision. Whether you accept it or not, you are my husband. Your opinion is no longer important. The way she said those words made everyone, including Mark and Song Yue, feel that she is a crazy person. After deciding to shoo her away, Mark then said, trying to be as calm as possible, Fine, I'm releasing you from our wager. I'll write a letter to your patriarch. You don't need to abandon the bow, okay? Now you can return to your home. None can do. Zai Mei continued to be stubborn. I have already made my decision and I'm not the type to break my word. I also took an oath to make you my husband. That cannot be broken too. Don't test my patience. Mark's expression changed to that of seriousness mixed with anger. Return now or else. Or else what? Zai Mei folded her hands to her chest as if she was provoking him. I can only break my promise when I die. Then you can die. Mark raised his hand and gestured for Lan Ju to take care of the girl while sending an order telepathically. The Zheng walked toward the girl. When he reached her with an energy spear and thrust it toward her neck, she tightened her fists and shut her eyes but didn't move from the spot. 5 seconds passed away. 10 seconds passed away, but her death never came, and she opened her eyes. The energy spear was just an inch away from her neck, while Lan Ju was looking at his master. Mark silently nodded in response, and Lan Ju dismissed the energy spear before patting her head. Child, you are brave. So I will give you an opportunity to think about it again. You don't understand the significance of your words. My master's life is riddled with dangers you cannot imagine. If you become a part of his life, your entire sect will bear the consequences. Are you prepared to sacrifice the life of your fellow sect disciples for your happiness when my master will not ever give you the treatment you deserved? Zai Mei this time couldn't give an answer, and there was a clear hesitation on her face. After all, she wasn't a selfish girl. Seeing that his plan worked, he thanked Lan Ju telepathically and spoke in a calm manner, trying to hammer the nail into the coffin. Kid, now that you understand the implications, return to your sect. Just apologize to your grandfather and everything will turn right. After all, you have the potential to become a demigod, if not, at least a supreme being. Everyone would welcome you. As I have said earlier, I'm nullifying the deal between us, and will write a letter to Patriarch Zai, so that it will be easier for you to pick up the bow in public once again. Zai Mei, who was silently looking at her feet, until now abruptly raised her head with an excited look. Slap. Lan Ju slapped his forehead and mumbled, Idiot, what have you done? Mark didn't understand the sudden change of expressions on Lan Ju and Zai Mei's respective faces. It was then the 15-year-old said, You are right. As long as I train hard, it won't be hard for me to become a supreme being and perhaps a demigod too. If I was able to acquire a suitable firearm for my realm, I would be as strong as 10 supreme realm experts. Doesn't that mean that I have the strength to protect my sect? Who in the right mind would try to attack my sect when it has my backing? Thank you, my husband, for making me realize such a simple thing. Mark. He couldn't speak anything for a while and scolded himself for trying to act too smart only to dig his grave in the end. Where were the 9 intelligence points when he needed them? He felt like an idiot all of a sudden. What should he do now? This girl wasn't afraid of death and stubbornly plans to follow him. There's no strong reason for him to kill her just because he was uncomfortable. Not to mention the fact that the girl is someone who might actually be someone useful to him after a few years of grooming. Of course, he doesn't have the slightest intention of marrying her. He isn't a pedophile. As for what happens when she grows up into a fine woman a few years down the line, he will leave his thoughts for the future. In the end, he resigned from his plan of shooing her away and decided to deal with her in a way that was going to benefit him. Fine, you may follow us and I will think about our marriage. But one condition, you will listen to everything I say. Sure, whatever my husband says, I will listen. Zai Mei continued with her role play as a wife, irking Mark and Song Yue once again. Taking a deep breath, Mark then said, All right then. My first instruction for you is that you will either address me as boss or master, whichever you prefer when we are in the presence of a third person. All right, hubby Tilda. Zai Mei used a nasal voice, trying to be sweet as if she wants to continuously trouble Mark and the others. Mind I remind you that there are people around. Mark furrowed his brows. Oops, sorry. Zai quickly apologized and rubbed her head like a klutz. Mark shook his head while letting out a deep sigh. I should stop judging someone by their details. Anyways, it doesn't matter. There's an event upcoming ahead. After that, whatever she decides will be her final decision.